stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much. And Vice President Butler, if you would report out for closed session, that would be great.
Yep, I will. The first item on the for closed session, the board did meet in closed session this evening. On November 7th, 2017, the Novato Unified School District Board of Trustees met in closed session to review the administrative hearing panel's recommendation on an expulsion of student 54827. Based on the review of the panel's recommendation, Trustee Millerick made the motion to expel. The student will be expelled for the current remainder of this semester plus the next full next semester for the following Ed Code violations: 48900 and 48915 Ed Code violations. Trustee Aguila seconded the motion. And here in open session, I will do a roll call vote. Trustee Millerick?
Aye.
Trustee Nell?
Aye.
Trustee Aguila?
Aye.
Trustee Mack?
Aye.
Trustee Scott?
Aye.
President Cooper? And I am an aye, as well as Trustee Butler. Okay. The second item, reference to pursuant to Government Code 54956.9, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Coalition to Save San Marin versus Novato Unified School District, Marin County Superior Court case number, civil case 1702295. This was an update to the board. The third item is pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator Chris Koska, Assistant Superintendent of Human Resources, Employees Organization, Novato Federation of Teachers, otherwise known as NFT. It was an update to the board. The last item, pursuant to Government Code 54957 and 54957.6, conference with labor negotiator Chris Koska, Assistant Superintendent of HR, or Human Resources, Employees Organization, California School Employees Association, otherwise known as CSEA. It was an update to the board.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move on to item 7, the approval of tonight's agenda. And would anyone like to move that? Trustee Millerick?
I'll move the order of business, tonight's agenda.
Thank you. Second. Trustee Scott. All in favor? Passes 7-0. Thank you very much. At this point, if anyone would, during tonight's meeting, like to speak to the trustees, address the board, there's blue slips like this out in the lobby out here. And if you would fill them out and bring them forward to Gladys, she'll arrange to get them to me, and I will plug you in where need be. I do not see any for consent agenda. I mean, on the consent agenda. So could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, unless anyone would like to pull anything? Trustee Aguila.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda, but I do have an item, E. I'm not going to pull it out. E, review and approve business and operations related to board policy and administrative regulations updates.
Okay.
I'll go ahead and.
Could you be a little more specific? There's a couple board policies in there.
Yes, the one with the water and toxins and things like that. So we're just, if I can just ask for it to come back later, I'd like to request that it be put in a future agenda item. So that would be, it's, the policy, so we can have a discussion about it.
Okay. With that said, I will talk to the superintendent and see about putting it on, getting it agendized. With that, you've made a first, and could I get a second on approval of the consent?
Could I just get a clarification?
Yeah.
Okay. Trustee Aguilar, are you asking to pull the policy, or are you asking for something specific in the policy? Because I'm assuming, which one are you, I'm making an assumption that you're looking at pest management.
Correct.
Okay. So are you pulling the whole policy entirely, or is it something specific that you're asking?
Well, first of all, we need to renew it, and so we need to look at that, and so it would probably be the whole policy.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we won't be approving the policy this evening.
Right.
Okay.
Well, is that what?
Then you would be pulling the item completely.
So it can be approved, but it just needs to be renewed, and we need to, if we can bring it back so we can talk about it. So maybe, whatever the superintendent sees fit.
So you have a question about the policy, but you want to go ahead and approve it? That doesn't, I would suggest that you pull the policy entirely if you have, and then we can bring it back to the discussion action items and put it in as our last discussion action item.
That would probably
If
be
we
the
do
best
that.
thing if we do that, do the whole
Let's
thing.
do that. I agree.
thank
I think the cleanest way, best way, just to pull that one item. So do you want to amend your motion to reflect that? Or would you like to just pull why don't you just, if you would like to pull that, why don't you just pull that one item?
Okay, I'll pull the whole item.
Pull item E, okay? And I do.
I'll move the consent agenda with item E removed, and we will discuss item E later this evening.
Very good. Trustee Nell, Trustee Miller, Trustee Nell, thank you very much. All in favor? Passes 7-0. Trustee Aguila, could we, in the interest of letting everyone speak tonight, we have a lot of business, could we discuss it at the end of the meeting?
I was actually thinking of bringing it in a future agenda item.
Why don't we do this? You've pulled it, so let's discuss it at the end of the meeting.
Sure.
Great. All right. So then we're on to your best part of the meeting in Sinaloa. Step right up. Good to see you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Larson, the principal over at Sinaloa. And instead of yammering on like principals do sometimes, I'm going to invite my Student Advocacy Council up. I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to let them do the talking. They're fantastic. Come on up, guys.
Hello and good evening. My name is Nicholas DiMartini, and I am a member of the Student Sinaloa Advocacy Council, or SSAC for short. The SSAC is the student opinion of our school, Sinaloa.
Hello, my name is Timothy Carroll. You may be wondering why students are running this and why adults aren't running this. Well, the reason is adults should probably be doing it, but kids do know a little bit more about what's going on in the school, and sometimes they don't want to tell adults. So this is why we thought it's a good idea to have kids running it. Not just that, but this is a school for students and not for adults.
Hi, I'm Allie Branch. The students of SSAC were self or staff nominated. We meet twice a month on Wednesdays during our tutorial and into our lunch.
Hi, I'm Jack Berry. Currently, we are working with the two members of the Youth Leadership Institution, Johnny and Amanda. And also, 3 people are participating in the school level of SSAC. We also have 2 people participating in the district-wide level.
Hi, I'm Cassie Reese. We started the SSAC last January.
Hi, I'm Max Thornton. Whenever we started, at the beginning of every meeting, we would do team bonding exercises to expand our abilities to work in a group and be productive. We would then learn how to do group decision making so we can work together.
We started by identifying 13 issues that we thought we had in our school.
With our new ability to group together different ideas, we decided that the 3 main ideas we should have were working on the homework policy, chewing gum at school, and also the cleanliness of our bathrooms. We ended these ideas just because we decided that may have been too much of a reach.
Hi, my name is Melanie Calderon, and we started at the beginning of this year because we wanted to accomplish what we started last year.
Hi, my name is Natalie Davila, and we have direct support from the Youth Leadership Institute, and they attend every meeting.
Hi, I'm Hannah Golan, and we have identified new areas to focus on which seem more important and meaningful, and that will help more students be successful in their learning. Some of these include extracurricular activities, the usage of drugs and alcohol, and
recruiting more students into our group to hear what they think and have them come up with more and new ideas.
Stay, don't go, because there's going to be questions. So This is about half of our group right now, mostly 7th graders here today, and we're looking to recruit some 6th graders. We got some 8th graders that couldn't make it tonight, but I just wanted to point out Johnny Sue is right there from YLI Youth Leadership.
Hi, I'm Marley Valet, and we would love to accomplish finding solutions to the issues that we've identified.
Institute, and then Anna Salem is right in the back there, also from Youth Leadership Institute. And so we're just feel so very fortunate at Sinaloa to be partnering with both these folks to be able to help build the capacity of our students, help them identify those issues, and really ultimately I think the way I would frame it is to move the needle for all of our kids, right? And that idea of the sphere of success, and some of our kids are not being successful, and we want all of our students to be successful, and kids often know what those issues are better than adults, and so having the kids identify the issues and then putting us to work, really, putting me to work to make sure we're moving the needle for all kids. And they love to answer questions. They're primed and ready.
Thank you, Jim. Questions, comments? Trustee Scott.
So students, you were mentioning 3 different policies that you were working on. What happened with the gum?
Mm-hmm.
And if you could also elaborate on the other issues, I'd love to hear what you guys talked about, what the resolution or the compromises were. I'd love to hear what happened with those.
So because we chose not to do chewing gum because there's so many things that you can do with it that would have been disgusting and or inappropriate for school. Putting it under your own desk, putting it under other people's desks. There were just so many things that you could do with it that would have gone wrong, that we decided that just trying to get that to work wouldn't be using our ability and our mind power correctly. And so instead we've decided extracurricular activities would allow for students who prefer to do problem solving, such as mathletes after school, or PE maybe, soccer, basketball, or baseball team would allow us to bond as a school together for those sports teams. And we also decided that working on drugs and alcohol would be the best decision, just because as a whole, although not a whole lot of students are doing it, this is greatly affecting students' education.
Great. All right.
All right. Trustee Nell.
To follow up on Trustee Scott's, the bathroom cleanliness one, I was wondering why. I want to hear more about that. That's not your responsibility, but maybe you might want to tell us what that is, and it's the kind of thing that this board might like to hear about.
Oh, well, in our bathroom, sometimes the locks don't work. Sometimes the locks break, and it's an awkward situation when someone just like barges in. And then also some people like wad up paper towels and then put water on them and throw them up in the ceiling. And also like gum sometimes ends up on the toilets. It's not a good thing.
Trustee Nell, would you like to follow up on that?
Well, besides my curiosity on the issues they decided to set aside and focus on extracurricular, on the issue of drugs and alcohol, which is a social issue where kids of your age group, I mean, it's so prevalent throughout our society and so forth. What sort of ideas did you guys come up with? I mean, is there anything, or is it too soon, or is there going to be some outreach efforts? What are you doing to get the word out?
So since it's pretty early in the year and we just came up with this idea to keep on working or to start working on the issue of drugs and alcohol, we haven't started making a difference yet, except by just talking about it and like why it's an actual issue.
Trustee Miller.
So the thing that's all the rage these days that's different than 10 years ago is social media is a powerful tool. And I'll bet you guys out there, the 10 of you, have better skills than the 8 of us sitting up here, not including these people because they may know what they're doing as well. So have you thought about a social media campaign on the campus or ways to leverage, I mean, what you guys are probably good at already? Go ahead and take a chance.
Well,
It's actually a very clever idea, and I actually think that we could be able to associate that with our other ideas, as in running a campaign for the three separate subjects.
Uh-huh.
And I think that that is something that we should look into.
Okay, well, there you go. So you're going to self-appoint yourself to do that? That's good. I'm glad to see you volunteered. Good.
Trustee
Thanks.
Mack. Thank you, Trustee Miller.
And you guys are talking about extracurriculars, so like mathletes and I guess sports in general. Talking about maybe engaging with other schools to do that kind of stuff? Or is it really just on campus at this point?
I feel like it would be a really great idea to engage with other schools on the sports or mathletes ideas, because it will build school spirit, and school spirit's a very important thing that Sinaloa kind of lacks in. And like Cash said before, it's a better way to bond with other students and like schools.
Good stuff. Thank you. Or
I know at our school and like San Jose and the Novato schools, we don't have like a basketball team or a soccer team, while other schools in the county do. And I think we would love the opportunity to like compete against other people in the county. And even if we made like a Novato team with San Jose kids and Sinaloa kids, I think that would still help this issue.
That's a great idea. Yeah. Put that on your agenda if you would. That's a good one. She's asking, if you didn't hear, she just wondered, you have a future maybe in looking into the school board. So when you grow up, then you can
You could always
be one of us.
You can't think of something worthwhile to do with your life. Join
All right, anyone else? No? Thank you very much, guys, for your leadership and for coming tonight.
Thanks. Yeah. Oh.
No, right up there. Tall kids in the back, short kids in the front.
What's that kid's name?
Cash, that's right. Told me I should give that to you. Thank you.
That's what you're doing last night. Thanks, Mr. Larson. Great job. All right, and I would like to, so this is the point in the meeting, the trustees and student trustees have a chance to make announcements and comments. And I would like to welcome all three of our student trustees this evening, Assad, Jeffrey, and Manuela. Welcome. It's great to have you all here. And so I'll start with Assad, if you want to start us off. Any comments or suggestions or anything that's going on at your school? That'd be great to hear.
So my student advisory council, we went over a couple of issues that our school or the school district has, and one of the issues was transportation, and especially the new late bell schedule, how it only affects a portion of the students while other students still wake up at the same times and they're just at school later, and it affects what they do after school and how much they can do after school.
All right, thank you very much. And Jeffrey?
All right. I don't have that much to report, just that last week we had a really interesting Spirit Week. Halloween was really interesting. There was a bunch of costumes. Everybody was dressed up. And it ended up with our class rally. And the class rallies are always interesting. So thank you.
And Manuela?
I don't have much to say as well, but last week we had team building at my school. There were stations where we made salsa, we did pin the tail, we had basketball, dodgeball, and we played tug of war. pretty intense.
Mhm.
And I went to a job shadow last week as well to Microsoft. They talked about LinkedIn, and we had a mock interview. And like when they were talking about LinkedIn, it reminded me of my class at Marin Oaks in Bridges, how we were starting to get our profile on LinkedIn as well, which was, I'm like, wow, we're doing this at school. What a shock. And when they were like, oh, we're going to do mock interviews, I'm like, what? I already did that. I have that in the bag. So it's good that my harder class, Bridges, is teaching me things that I am using in life. That's good.
Isn't that amazing? It actually works. Thank you. Trustee Miller?
No comments, Mr. President.
Trustee Nell?
A couple things, just wanted to let everyone know that I attended Mr. Pitty's service on Sunday. Was well done, well attended, and thoughtful and respectful, and certainly evident of the great loss our community has undergone. So, sad thing when a young man like that passes away to something like cancer. Just to report out on a couple of things, the committees I serve on, School Fuel is beginning its sponsorship drive for the annual bike event. So you may or may not be getting an email or a letter soon with regard to that. And tomorrow, JLAC, the Joint Legislative Action Committee, will be meeting to discuss for the first time how to update its priority list that we will be bringing to our annual sojourn to Sacramento to discuss with our elected representatives and other governmental officials. I had, you all have a copy distributed to you for last year's priorities. So I'm open to any input. We're going to begin the discussion at the committee tomorrow, and we don't go to Sacramento until early January, so I'll report back later as this develops. But if you would like to contribute or would like to see something added to our message, please let me know. And that's my report for
Thanks,
JLAC.
sir. Thank you. Trustee Aguila?
On October 18th, had the opportunity to go to a budget meeting here, and we talked about our budget, and it was well attended, and we had a good information. I applaud our staff, transparency, and we're getting good information out to the community. On the 25th, I caught the last part of the schools rule, and so thankful for them. They raised a lot of money, and they volunteers, they put a lot of work into it, and all in the name of educating our students. So very thankful for them and all the hard work that they do. On the 27th, I went the whole week of the 27th. I attended Rancho's Do Good, Be Kind launch. It was just a wonderful, the people that are working on that, your average Joe parents, and they just got this idea together, and they just went for it, and it was very well done. Very, they raised money on their own. It's just amazing, and it's not over. So looking forward to that. I support them. And
did you get a T-shirt?
I did.
Ah, good job.
I did. I got 2 T-shirts actually. 'Cause I won the whole week. So
every child in that school got one of those T-shirts.
Yes.
That's what I thought was so amazing.
Yeah, and there's a lot more, and hopefully, all our schools will participate in this. And then on the 28th, I went to the Scream on the Green, volunteered there on a Saturday. Lots of kids, happy kids with their costumes, and my nephews were actually there, and they got to be the judge of the Halloween costumes, and it was a lot of fun. And they got community service hours. So if we I'm reminding our students that to just be out on the lookout for community events and get community volunteer hours so they can do their 40 hours a year. And easily you can I still think we should raise the bar and add more hours to our. But anyway, that's my update.
Trustee Mack? Thank you, Trustee Aguilar.
Yeah, this just this past weekend, on top of the 6 other meetings I went to in the last 2 weeks, but this past weekend, also went to Pitty's Memorial, because that's what he liked to be called, is Pitty, not Mr. Pitty. And it was very powerful. I'd never seen that gym so full. It was, sitting next to Shelley a long time there. And I have to say, I'm really impressed with the San Marin campus, just the feel for putting it together. Very impressive. And like Derek said, it's a big loss for us. And I didn't know how much of a loss it was until I went there, to be honest. It's more than I expected. Beyond that, on a lighter note, went to the Black and Gold fundraiser Friday night for Novato High, raising money to put up a shade structure in the concrete pit that's in the middle of campus that I didn't know. It used to be the smoking section. Anyway, and then also attended that night, then the next day, all day football. Assad and the boys here did a good job in winning their game, although the varsity couldn't say the same. But anyway, Novato San Marin, big day. And then that night went to the fundraiser for the lights out at Novato Horseman's. On a more kind of administrative note, I've been to several meetings in the past 2 weeks. So the first, the Technology Advisory Committee reporting out. We need to be aware of the machines going out for one-to-one, one-to-world. Obviously, it's a big process to get them out to all the students each year. And this year, it's only a partial because we're not hitting everybody. But as we go forward, we're going to be hitting the entire population. We have to weigh in on a decision whether we do that every single year. In other words, collect them at the end of the year and then push them out again, or let the students keep them over the summer. It's not an easy decision. Collecting them is going to be problematic as well, because you're not going to be able to collect them until the last day of school because kids are taking finals. So we need to probably think about that and weigh in on it. So I just want to bring that up. That's my main takeaway there. With regard to the, gate advisory, I was there with Yvonne. Yvonne was noting how it will not, dual immersion will not impact GATE, at least for the next few years, obviously, because the program's not going to go beyond first grade, the first year. So we still have some time to figure out that, but we didn't rule out that GATE might eventually, at some point, move to another campus. We just don't know yet.
So can I ask you just a little bit about
Sure.
that? When you were there, was that with the parent group as well, or was that just staff?
This was GATE advisory, so it was a combination of staff and parents.
And the feedback from the parents?
It was fine.
Okay.
They understood.
Okay,
So,
good. Thank you.
But the main thing that came up there was just the in switching from an opt-in model for GATE to an opt-out model like we've done. Been very successful, as we all know, which is tremendous, good stuff. But it's also driving some anxiety. Some kids are opting out just because they're freaked out about taking the test, or their parents are freaking them out. But the thought was, how can we reduce that anxiety? So let's maybe look into methods for doing that. And in fact, that did come up later in another meeting I had, but I'll bring that up later. The next meeting I went to was the safety committee, and the main thing there is that turns out that we need to probably put together a disaster recovery plan for our data center. Our data center is in a dedicated facility. It's probably pretty safe, but it goes down, we're done. And we probably need, the methodology I've heard discussed is sharing with other districts, going to another district and using some of their spare kind of server space as our disaster recovery location, so that if we go down, we can go there. Unfortunately, we can't do it for somebody else because I guess we don't have the space to take that on. But that's something else we got to take on, is disaster recovery, especially with what we saw last few weeks. And then DLAC. One thing to know, everything is changing from the CELT to something called the LPAC. So we have a new test coming out. We're in transition, which we seem to be in a lot of these days. So it's going to impact how we reclassify students. And so I'll keep you posted on that, but be aware that's going to possibly cause some issues. As well, they conducted a survey. The response wasn't what we wanted, only 217 responses out of 1,200 ELLs. But the results did have some pretty clear indications. The parents and the students, the respondees, are very interested in the journey to college, of course, how to access outside school activities, which I think we probably could do a better job of. Probably translation is part of that. And as well, tutoring and homework were top interests. So then, I'm sorry, I've got a whole bunch of meetings here. Dual immersion task force. We are in the process right now of hitting all the ELAC and PTA meetings to promote the program. The problem is that not everybody's going to these, and sometimes word's getting out, and by the time it gets to the fourth person, the facts get skewed. So we're going to really try to address that. Also, we're going to look into putting a banner on the fence right on Novato Boulevard. Dual immersion coming to Linwood School fall of 2018. There's a lot of excitement here. One of the things that came up, though, we covered all the scenarios, but one of the weird scenarios is what happens if Linwood boundary kids are more than 2 classes in, like, say, first or kinder. So now we have, 70, let's say, kids that live within that boundary area. What do we do with those extra kids? Normally we overflow them, but in this case, well, how do you overflow them? Because we have to maintain a 50-50 balance of English and Spanish speakers or something close to that. So we need to think through that. We haven't really done that yet. And Yvonne's on it. But that was something that came up. As we're getting closer and closer, we're realizing, whoa, what about this? And we'll figure these things out as we go. And then last night I went to the GATE Parent Information Night. Really, it was a good meeting because I, for the first time, got to meet Karen Brown. Very impressive. I learned a lot about GATE. I thought I already knew it. I didn't. But it was really helpful. And sure enough, the testing, the anxiety testing, what we're going to do is instead of announcing we're testing on this date at that school and all the kids are kind of freaking out, we're just going to announce a window. And it might take place sometime in this period. So that way, kids just take it. And that's it. Sorry for being so long. There's a lot of meetings.
You've been busy, Trustee Mack.
Yeah.
Thank you for all of that. Trustee Scott?
So Sunday, I also attended Coach Pitty's memorial, and I just want to say I was so impressed by the turnout. I loved how so many kids and parents wore a T-shirt that was the Pitty Army, and I absolutely adored the fact that in that gym they reserved a spot, and it's painted on the wall, Pitty Army, with kids. I took a picture of it. I liked it so much, and I'm just so honored that they honored him in that way because he just was the heart and soul of that gym. So I'm just really happy that they did something to memorialize him. Back, I also attended the data analysis workshop that Jan Derby came and did, and I just want to say thank you to Jan Derby for that. It was an amazing workshop. I learned a lot, and I learned that there's a lot that I still don't know. Also today went to a district leadership meeting, and I have to say that we have some rock stars in our district. I have to say that the team building that's going on at the district level was inspiring to see, and I can't wait to see more of it. Thanks.
Trustee Butler?
Yeah, I attended the budget advisory meeting, and I did Marin Promise, which is, I'm a representative from Marin Promise. I'm representing Marin County School Boards Association. I'm the rep for them. I did the Schools Rule of Marin, where they distributed the checks, as one other trustee mentioned. School Fuel, our education foundation, received $158,000. So they have that earmarked to go to several different things, and one of them is keeping, I believe, the library at Novato High opened into the little bit later in the day. So I thought that was great. I stopped by the district spelling bee over at San Jose Middle School, and once it got to a word that I can't spell, I got out of there. And then Novato High had all of their homecoming events this last weekend because it got moved during the fires when we closed school on that Friday. So I went to the parade that was on Thursday night, and then the black and gold auction was also on Friday night, so I did that as well. And then this last Friday, North Marin Council PTA, which is all of the PTA presidents in Novato, meet once a month and come together and conduct their business. And so I attend that as the representative for this board. And then Jim does a report out. Superintendent Hogaboom does a report out, an update to them, which is really good because then they bring that information back to their PTA meetings, to their parent group, and let everybody know what's happening. And then I as well attended Craig Pitty's memorial on Sunday, which was beautiful, and I can't add too much more to that. It was just amazing. And one person said, we need more Craig Pitty's, and I couldn't agree more. I thought I knew him, but I really got to really know him for those 2.5 hours I was there. So,
thank you very much. Thank you. He will. I too attended that memorial service, and I was touched with not only the students who got up and spoke, and I was really, I respected him a lot because all of his peers from throughout the county came, and Sonoma County, Marin County, and they all got up there in front, and that was powerful to me. I too went to the superintendent talks this week, and he did a good job talking. I think, Jim, you did a great job talking to the parents and explaining our budget situation and test scores and everything. I appreciate that. And I also went to the school's rural event where we got some nice funds. So, Superintendent Hogaboom.
Thank you very much. So obviously lots going on in the district. Shirley mentioned our district leadership team, which is really looking at the graduate profile and all the performance assessments we can put together that will lead to that. So that would be starting at our senior year in kind of a defensive portfolio. In 8th grade, it would look like some kind of a digital portfolio, and then probably 5th grade would be some kind of a student-led conference. So we're excited to have our teachers leading that, and I echo Shelley's comments that our teachers are doing a great job leading that forward. We also had our district advisory committee on Monday. They focus on equity issues, so the National Equity Project and Nancy Dome with Epic Learning come and tell us what they're doing. We'll start diving into the LCAP pretty soon to see how those strategies are working in terms of helping us close the achievement gap. We have a bond study session next Tuesday at 6 o'clock, so we'll be giving an update on kind of all the bond projects and where we are with those, as well as air conditioning report. And Professional Development Day is Thursday, right before Veterans Day on Friday. So the schools will have their own professional development in the mornings. If you can drop by, that would be, is it in the morning or the other way around? Do you have it in the morning or the afternoon? Well, the morning is, I think, the schools, and then the afternoon is the district, or vice versa. I'm not sure. So anyway. Thank you. The morning is district and the afternoon is school. So if you're here to drop by, there's be some good things going on. To echo our student voice and choice, we're also trying to give teachers voice and choice. So they've picked different committees that have to do with either math, growth mindset, technology, a whole bunch of different ones that are facilitated by the district. And finally, again, to echo the student voice, our district advocacy council, Leslie and I met with them. Some of the 2 students here, Jack and Cash, were there. Manuel was there. So it's really, I think we're starting to gain steam with really listening to our students. We missed a couple students on our committees, the district leadership team and district advisory committee. We didn't have students, but your guys' voice is really, really important on those to make sure that we're focused on the things that are most important. And you guys have great ideas and suggestions. So, and also thanks to YLI and Anna for super well prepared at that district advisory advocacy council. And I know you're helping these guys as well. So thanks for all your work on that. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Jim. All right, at this point in the meeting, we have non-agenda public comment, and I have 3 blue cards, and if anyone else would like to speak, there's blue cards out in the lobby. Feel free to fill them out. First speaker would be Matt Elkins, followed by Kevin Bartram. How's it going?
Good. How's it going with you?
Well.
Did everyone vote today?
Yeah.
Everybody voted.
I only had one issue to vote on, so just one. That was an easy one. So thanks again for having me, and I'm back. Appreciate this. So on game day, parents of lacrosse, soccer, and football players take a seat in the stands to watch their kids play. A few sell tickets and Novato High School logo gear. At swim meets and water polo games, parents find a spot to watch their student athletes compete. In between games, not much parental activity required. That's the way it should be, don't you think? Then there's Novato High School Hornets baseball. Parents and coaches lay grass, pull weeds, fill holes, trap gophers, fix sprinklers, chalk the lines, mow the grass, often with borrowed or personal equipment, and any number of other maintenance tasks that are way beyond the typical scope of parent volunteers, but necessary as district staff seem unavailable or under-resourced to do it. These optics suggest the obvious, that a natural grass field is unsustainable without the resources necessary to maintain it. And relying on parents to do it enables a clearly unfair and dysfunctional system, some may say. It's an unfortunate reflection on the district's responsibility to maintain the property. Thanks to Measure G, while football, soccer, and lacrosse at Novato get better versions of what they already have, or celebrate the approved multi-turf field, thank you, at Novato High School, baseball is left to literally languish in a deteriorating natural state, shoehorned between two funded turf projects. Anyone who wants their kid to play in a serious baseball program will bypass Novato after due diligence. A close look at the field would reveal a grass surface lined with ankle-twisting holes and ruts that could jeopardize a player's season. We already see other student athletes abandon Novato for Central Marin schools if athletics are an important part of their decision. Like I've said before, the allocation process rewarded good lobbying. Well, baseball lacked that when it counted the most, with no head coach or AD or even the boosters to represent at that particular time. But it's not too late to reconsider, and I ask that you please reallocate funds for the conversion of our uneven, potholed, swamp-like field to low-maintenance synthetic turf. Now, I know not all of you may care or relate to this topic, but please understand there is a gross disparity between a sport that has the largest participation of athletes, baseball, and those that have far fewer. And from a collaborative viewpoint, know that some of us are not just demanding attention for funds, but are actively invested in our own fundraising activities, benefiting the crumbling infrastructure surrounding the field. Those additional facility improvements will come from our ability to raise funds from the surrounding business community, funds that, again, may have been requested from Measure G at one time. So we passionate parents who are clearly late to the game are trying to do our fair share. We simply ask that this board do its share as well and allocate funds for improving the baseball field while you still can. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt.
My pleasure.
All right, Kevin Bartram. Followed by Nita Gibson.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for taking a couple minutes here to hear what we're up to. I'm following Matt. I was actually going to say a few different things, but I want to, based on what Matt said, I wanted to just add some things impromptu here. So I'm a parent of two kids. One, Dharma, is a senior at Novato High School. She started the Swarm newspaper last year. She's editor of the paper and the yearbook and very active and going through the college application process and all of that now. My son is an 8th grader at San Jose, and he is a very good baseball player, an accomplished athlete, plays high-level basketball and baseball, and he is going to Novato. That is the direction we're going. It has been a hard decision, and we've angsted a bit over it at times, as other schools have talked to us about, using somebody's address to stay in their district, or find some other way to come play with someone. We are committed to Novato. My daughter has loved going to Novato High. Obviously, there's more than sports, and the academics are very important to us, and activities and everything else that Novato High gives us. So we love that part of it. But it has been really hard, and Matt's point about the field really speaks volumes. When you go to the facility and you do see how kind of the state of disrepair that it's in most of the time, as a baseball person, somebody that goes to tournaments and plays at high schools where the fields are immaculate, the facilities are immaculate, or at least playable. It's hard to then go see Novato High. So there is a lot that needs to be done. I appreciate what Matt said, and I support where Matt's going with the turf. But we're also looking at other short-term solutions and things that we can do ourselves as parents. I'm getting involved with the boosters and with some other school leaders to help develop a program that would engage the community to get around Novato baseball, provide support in the way of sponsorship and other kinds of donations to help us enhance the facilities there. And through a combination of parents, volunteers, booster support, community support, and hopefully district support, we want to really pull some people together and get the facilities fixed and get them to a place where they're playable and maybe, create a platform that would be easier than to go to the next level and, take it to a turf field or whatever else we can do to kind of permanently fix it. But I do want to come back in the near future with a plan and share it with you, and hopefully we can, come up with something that'll work for everybody and do our part and work with you. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin, for coming.
Thank you.
And now Nita. Hi, Nita.
Hello, hi. My name's Nita Gibson. I'm a parent here in Novato, and I have 5 children. Two of them went to Novato High School, and I've got 2 currently at Novato High, and I have 1 still at San Jose Middle School. So anyway, I'm here because of the concern about the baseball field. As a taxpayer and homeowners here in Novato, our family and I are deeply, and we were very strong supporters of Measure G. And we're highly disappointed to hear that none of that more than $222 million to the school district, that none of it would be applied towards improving the conditions of the baseball field at Novato High. So last year was our very first experience with baseball at Novato High, and when my 2 boys were freshmen, and we were absolutely surprised about what we had to do to make it happen for them. And having to take them to San Jose Middle School, where the boys have to go right after school to walk to San Jose Middle School to practice, and sometimes in the rain, and when there are children who cannot be transported there, they skip practice. They don't want to go because it's a lot out of their time to walk there from Novato High to San Jose Middle School, sometimes in the rain, and then when they get there, they have to prep the field. And then half of their time with their practice is prepping the field. So they lose a lot of practice time. And even during games, sometimes the games have to be stopped because the condition of the field is so inadequate, and it causes a lot of delay with the games as well. So, as I volunteer quite a bit at the schools, and I am tired. I'm tired of not getting the support. We supported Measure G, and we were really hoping that that would help. And to hear that none of the plans are going forward to supporting this field, where a lot of kids are impacted in high school, especially the freshmen. I mean, the good thing is that my boys are a sophomore now. They don't have to walk to San Jose Middle School this year, but I can understand why people have not come forward, because the people who are going to be affected by this, who are still in middle school coming into 9th grade, are not aware of the situation. So I'm not surprised that there's not a whole lot of voice here today about that. So, I mean, it's fortunate that we have the resource that my family had scrambled around to try to figure out how to transport some of the kids over there and help them out. But some of these kids do not have that kind of resource. They don't. So I sure hope that the board really think twice about how to put some funds and appropriately put it towards the field at Novato High School, which is absolutely needed. And you're talking about disparity. There's a disparity when you cannot serve the children who are already undersourced with having to get transportation.
Thank you.
So thank you so much.
Thank you, Nita, for coming. Thank you, all of you, for coming, speaking. And now we're on to item 13A, our first discussion action item for tonight, and Jim Hogaboom, our superintendent.
Purple. There you go. All right. Good evening, everybody. So I'm here tonight to hopefully get final approval of the district mission, vision, values, motto, and logo. I don't usually use a slideshow, but I figured I'd break down this time and use one. So here we go. I think the first thing I want to say is that words do matter. You know, we were talking last time, and you guys have seen this a lot of times, and sometimes, well, if it says this or it says this, what difference does it make? Words make a huge difference. And really the district mission and vision makes a huge difference because it helps guide where we're going. So one example of the fact that words matter, there's a district that I learned about called Lindsay Unified School District over in the Valley, and who really adopted a personalized mastery learning approach, and their whole system is built on that. And it really started with their district vision, mission, and how they phrase things. And at a conference that I told you guys about that I went to on kind of individualized learning back in Florida, there was a whole bunch of students up there that were talking about how their whole student experience was different because they were in charge of their learning. And one of the things the district did was they switched words that they used. So instead of calling the students students, they called students learners. And instead of calling teachers teachers, they called them learning facilitators. And so you can imagine that that's a pretty hard switch to make. And I was reading about how they did that. But the student who was there, she used that same phrase as well. So they've been doing this for, I think, about 10 years now. And if you think of the vision of a student and a teacher, I think you get the old-fashioned model of somebody standing there talking at kids who are kind of those passive receptors. But when you talk about learners and learning facilitators, you think of a different dynamic. So I'm not suggesting we do that. I'm just suggesting that the words we use to describe things really make a difference. And not only do words matter, but these things matter as well. The mission, vision, and values, the priorities, the goals that we set every year, the strategies and plans and the data, that all matters as well because we want to take a systematic approach and we want to use systems thinking. Otherwise, you get what you have in most schools, which is pockets of innovation. So you have little pockets of innovation that kind of spring up and things happen, but you get a principal who leaves, you get a teacher who leaves, and then the whole thing falls apart. So it's super important if we want to use our graduate profile to transform teaching and learning in Novato Unified, that we do that in a systematic way. So you know, the board's taken a little bit of criticism for you having kiosk help us with this, and really, this isn't about branding and it's not about the color purple. This is about having a strong mission and vision that guide our district. And kiosk is helping us with that, but it really was those focus groups and our people. So this is really important, and the $24,000 that they helped us do that, in my opinion, is money really, really well spent. So to move on to it from there, the mission and vision were things we talked about a lot last time, a little bit in detail because they've changed a little bit. The values and the motto and I think the logo are pretty much a done deal. So I think the mission so the purpose of a mission is to tell what our purpose as a district is and explain why we exist as an organization. So I'm not going to go through these because I think you've seen them before. The final mission statement would read, engage, inspire, and empower all students in a rapidly changing world to realize their life goals. I think we kind of agreed on that last time. You switched creating a better and just future because that was a little nebulous and hard to maybe quantify to realizing their life goals, which I think is great. We had changed inspire to equip, but that kind of sounded like you're going on a backpacking trip. So we went back to inspire. And again, I think the rapidly changing world is really, really important. We talk about that all the time. And I think you've got to put that in there, that it is a rapidly changing world and we have to react to that. So the final mission statement we're proposing is engage, inspire, and empower all students in a rapidly changing world to realize their life goals. And I think there was pretty common agreement on that last time. The vision, that's important to know. That's where we're going, the future ideal for where we want to be. So that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get to your vision because it's always something you want to strive for. Initially, we talked about innovative and personalized learning experiences that were important. We actually switched that based on some feedback to dynamic and innovative education. In the second revised vision, caring and supportive environment, that's all about that. That's super important so the kids have the social emotional needs met to learn. And then we will engage parents, teachers, and our community to actively support our students' learning and success. That did not really change, except I think to say support our students' growth and learning. So now this is the biggest change. After thinking about this a lot, I think the word personalized learning is incredibly important. And it's not just because I was reading about Lindsay Unified School District, but I think that if we don't personalize our learning, we're going to lose too many students. And I think we lose too many of them now. So yes, I mean, some of the feedback was, well, how do we personalize education? Well, we've got to figure that out. And we can do it easily in elementary school because the teachers have 20 to 25 kids, a lot easier, they can do that. But the structure of our middle schools and our high schools has got to change. If we can't know our students better and personalize what we're doing and let them take charge of their learning, then too many kids are going to fall through the cracks, which is exactly what's happening now. You know, Jim mentioned earlier that sphere of success. Well, we've got, I mean, I guess you could be nice and say maybe 50% of our kids are in that sphere. They're going to do well no matter what. They've got great parental support. But I would argue there's another 50% of our kids that our school system is not working for them. And we've got to find a way to personalize our learning experiences, and we've got to make them more innovative. And since Matt's sitting right there, I mean, I think MSA and MBI, those are amazing ways to do that. And MBI, to me, is the way we need to go in the future. There's no bells. Teachers know the kids well. We have a learning management system, Summit Learning, that helps teachers keep control of that. So I feel really passionate that what we started with, which was a personalized and innovative learning experience, is what we need to end with. So that's really the only difference in those two statements. So it would read NUSD, and Greg, I think you ported out last time, we will or NUSD will, so we kind of went to the NUSD will on all these. We will provide an innovative and personalized learning experience for every student in a caring and supportive environment so they can develop the knowledge and skills necessary to be successful and productive citizens. So that's our goal. NUSD will engage parents, teachers, and the community to actively support our students' growth and learning. So that's my plug for that one. The values, we just defined those. They're the same ones we've had before that are kind of our community and our focus groups came up with. Caring, which means displaying kindness and concern for others, kind-hearted. Collaborative, we've talked about that a lot, it's one of our 6 C's, working as a team to produce the best results. Equitable, so that's equity, which is to be distinguished from equality, ensuring that all students, especially those furthest from opportunity, reach their goals. Inclusive, inviting and encouraging all to participate, not excluding any students or group of students. And innovative, that you heard a little bit before, introducing new ideas, original and creative in thinking, featuring new methods. Motto, so it's a slogan or saying that embodies the purpose of the organization. So it's kind of the first 3 words from our vision statement: engage, inspire, and empower. And then finally, you've seen this a little before, our district logo. So that's kind of the revised kids holding hands have morphed now into different colored students from across the spectrum. Purple would be the district color, so to speak, and we will work with Kiosk on next steps in terms of some of the branding things to make sure that this is all done kind of in the right way and we get the right typeset and all that kind of stuff. So they actually had come up with they're doing some further work with us around the graduate profile and some icons for that. So Shelley, you saw that today. They have some cards we're looking at and how to roll that out there with our secondary schools, and maybe doing something a little different with our elementary schools with some rocket ship kinds of things that I won't go into tonight. But there's some follow-up work that they're going to help us with on that. And they had another one of the data star, so then we started thinking, well, maybe the star would be a logo, and then people nixed it. So that's where we are. And so basically tonight we're asking for your final approval, and I guess really the only question we had a little bit before was about the vision. So my encouragement would be to adopt the one that had the personalized and innovative learning experiences. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it. I'd like to put it up to the trustees, but I'd like to hear from the student trustees first, if I could. Any ideas on this? Like what you're hearing? Is it meaningful?
Come on, Jeff. You've got
to
have
something
personalized. You know, I really like it. It's just one of these things. It's just, you know, I really don't know where I'm going with this. Apologize. So the values that we have: the caring, collaborative, equitable, inclusive, and innovative. I really like all these things because these are things that we've been like doing for the last year, and just having it as what we're gonna say are the values that we're gonna be like focusing on. I think that's perfect. So thank you.
Good. All right. Trustees, comments, questions? Trustee Nell, or Mac, I mean. And then we'll go to Trustee Aguilar.
I think it looks great. I'll warm up to purple, but it's okay. I mean, I'm just kind of used to Novato, believe it or not, kind of being a green kind of for some, maybe it's a city. But anyway, wordsmithing just on the vision, I think it was, and just a really word economy thing. Instead of so they can be, just would it make sense to say environment to develop? Just cutting down words. So anyway, I'll leave that to you guys optionally. But anyway.
But you like the personalized and...
Yeah, I'm fine with everything else.
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
I'm ready to go.
Aguilar? Great.
Yes, I really like personalized because it's to me it's kind of like saying individual, and so if one student feels that something that's being taught to them is personalized, they're going to be more engaged. They're going to actually learn, and take it personal and take it in a good sense. And so I think it's great. I don't know why we didn't think about this word earlier, but I really like it.
Thank you. All right, thank you. Anyone else? Trustee Nell and then Trustee Miller.
I'm supportive of everything that we have, and since the final vision is the one that's in question, I support the personalized version. I think it speaks to where we need to be going. Differentiation is a harder word to say, and I mean that doesn't sound so good in something, but with the use of technology, it's just time to get away from the old agricultural system of 33 kids in rows and a teacher projecting the same thing, one size fits all, lowest common denominator. This is a much better vision, in my opinion, that we're going to use technology. We're going to find out what it is, the cognitive abilities of each and every individual, and we're going to work to that end to try to help them learn and grow. So I think it's a good word, and I support the new final vision.
Thank you. Trustee Miller.
I support what we're doing. I particularly appreciate that what we have before us this evening is a much more active voice in stating where we're going. I imagine we just got through passing a bond measure where each of us went door to door and talked to the citizens of this town and said, put on the table $200 million plus, and we're going to educate your children. And these statements where we're taking a proactive position, where we're speaking to that, because one of the communities this speaks to are those voters, and it says who we are, and it's written in an active voice, and it's affirmative, and it talks about what we're going to do for kids. And I think it is a good message and response that comes right after we did the ask. Here's what we're promising to do. So I am pleased with the change from the last time around. I will support this. This is great. As an extension to the conversation we had the last time around, there is a next step which has to do with how we implement these messages and how we implement these graphics into the communications across all of our sites. So instead of having 14 campuses and 14 separate brands and the message being crafted, and maybe on one campus maybe 5 or 6 different brands, that we can consolidate that and become a voice for education in Novato across all of those programs and consolidate. And that, I believe, was the vision that was presented to us, and I'm looking forward to the next step, which is putting together the messaging dialogues and tools and techniques that Trustee Nell talked about last time, that says here's the tools on how to effectively apply these to deliver the message to the students, to the teachers, to the board, and to the community. So I'm thrilled with where we are. I'm ready to move forward on this. I think we got to this point, we just have some more work to do.
Great.
So thank you, Ross, and that's exactly what the next steps are, and that's where kiosks can really help us because they're kind of the marketing experts, the branding experts, and all that stuff. So that exactly is the next step, and we will bring a report back probably next time with kiosk about what those next steps would be.
All right.
And I like personalized in there like everybody else.
Jeffrey, you had some follow-up comments.
All right. Now that I've had time to gather
you
my
had
thoughts.
a chance to think about it.
So, going off the what he said about one size does not fit all, there was actually a book I read about it, and it's really just goes back to the fact that these rows are made for us to be able to work in factories, so that we're in our rows, we're neatly there, we're doing our work, being quiet. That's what the school system was organized for. But having it so that it's more personalized, having it so that you can have space to grow, and in this new era, it makes it so that we can get away from this traditional idea of having these rows that basically inhibit us from working in groups, which is what is the modern day. The modern day is now you're working in a group, you're working with partners, you're working with people, you're not working by yourself, working off textbooks, copying down whatever the textbook says to a piece of paper. That is the old way of learning. But now we have these new techniques, new methods, new everything, and we're still using the old forms of like passing out the education. Now we need to execute this in a different way, having that in groups of 4 or the very effective ways that my my math teacher brought up last time, Ms. Lobbs, where she has us working in groups of 4, where if you're working, she gives you a problem or something, the group of 4 works to solve it. And it's typically it's problems that we really haven't like learned to do exactly. Like, I don't know, say if it was in pre-calculus, it was like figure out how this unit circle blah 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 does this. And it works because you're working to solve it by yourself. You're working to solve it in a different way than this is teaching you to do. Having it just handed to you, you're going to forget it. You're not using your mind to actively solve this issue. So having this personalized learning experience will make it so that we can grow as a school and a district.
Thank you.
I would love to have you advocate for many different things to other students within this district. All right, any other comments on that? Trustee Aguila.
Just wanted to make sure we address trustees, the comment about supportive environment to develop the knowledge. And I just wanted to hear everybody's opinion on that. Actually, I like that too, or in order to develop, you know. I just wanted to,
You're just
hear
concurring
comments
with
from,
what Trustee Mack
yes,
said.
exactly.
Okay.
Just make
Yeah.
it.
You want to leave that up to staff? I think that, but that's a good suggestion.
Yeah, if you guys think it makes sense.
Yeah, good. All right. So I think we've come to the end of discussion, I think. And also, I'd like to take a vote on this. You have a first? Okay, I have first, Trustee Mack, Trustee Aguila. You will be, I know. Okay, we have a first and a second to approve the proposed values, mission, vision, motto, and logo as presented. Yeah, exactly. All in favor? Passes 7-0. Great work, everybody. Long time coming. All right, and next up is the reason we're all here really is approval of the 2017-18 single plans. And Yvonne Chaidez will start us off, and I don't know who's going to be first.
Well, good evening. Thank you, President Cooper, for this opportunity. And I heard a comment that this is why we're here, and that is correct. Our role as a district office is to support our school sites, to support teaching and learning, and all aspects of what we call the whole child, the social, emotional, behavior side. So tonight, this is an action item. We're going to be presenting, our principals will be presenting the 2017-18 single plans for student achievement, also referred to as the SIPSAs. So this evening we have Marin Oaks High School, Nexus, Nova, San Marin High School, Novato High, Hamilton, the K-8, San Jose Middle School, and Sinaloa Middle Schools. And we're asking for the Board of Trustees for your approval. The SIPSAs, what you'll notice is they're all aligned. Their presentations this evening are also aligned to their SIPSA plans. There's in alignment as well with our district goals around equity, student success, staff success, community involvement, and engagement. So what we're going to do is the process is we do have 6 presentations. They will take 7 minutes each with 3 minutes of question and answer, because for the next hour, it's going to be like the best hour ever. So if you're out there, get some popcorn. So 7 minutes of presentation, and then more or less 3 minutes of question and answers, just to respect our time for this evening. So the lineup is going to be Hamilton, then San Jose, Sinaloa, then Marin Oaks, Novato High, and then San Marin High School. All right, so up first is Principal Steve from Hamilton. So come on up.
Got a tie on, 7 minutes. Hamilton Strong, Assad, nice to see you here. Manuela, Jeffrey, you're poised as ever. Nice to see you here. Thanks for having us here, this opportunity. I love coming to this once a year and doing this. So I'm going to talk about who we are at Hamilton. I'm going to talk about what our strengths are. I'll talk about our highlights, and we're going to talk about data and what we learned, our concerns, and where we're going with this. Do I shake it? Okay. All right, so let's begin with who we are, some demographics for you. So, right out of the bat, I look at this, and, we have twice as many Hispanics than we do Caucasian kids. About 3/4 of our kids are on free and reduced. And interesting enough, a third of all the African-American students in Nevada Unified go to Hamilton School. Talk about branding. So we did this last year. We wanted to identify who we are at Hamilton School. So we asked our community to come up with adjectives that best describe our strengths. So as you can see here, we came up, and things that came on surfacing was supportive, collaborative, inclusive, diverse, and innovative. And so these beautiful banners now are going to be throughout our campus, and it's going to look like a college campus, but when you're a visitor coming to our campus, you're going to know exactly who we are. And then some of the highlights. So I'm going to skip the culture of caring because I'm coming back to you on January 31st to go deeper with the P3 folks and talk about the culture of caring. But one of the things that really is going exceptionally well at Hamilton is our middle school sports program. So we wanted to provide a skill to our middle schoolers other than academics, so they have to go to the high school and they have a sense of belonging. They can join a team and get a sense of belonging. So now we have wrestling, boys and girls, basketball, soccer. We're doing, of course, cross country and track and field, and the vans are rocking it. Those things are busy. And then the Mentor Me program is, in fact, I just got done with Mentor Me, training 13 new folks, 25 last week, and we're moving into the high school now. So our soldiers are on the ground, and they're walking alongside of our students one-to-one and help navigate through the system of a high school. Super excited about that. Big shout out to Jen Nickel for being super supportive with this. All right, so let's talk data. So you see 2 graphs up here, and they have basically the same information as 3-year study, and then we have ELA and math. And on the left, you got maps, and then we're showing a growth. So, and then that's what the information we usually have at our sites. And then we have the CASP, same data, and we're going down. So the staff, we did a deep data dive and really try to figure out what's going on here. And so I think we came up with some good thoughts and some direction, but we have some concerns, and I'll share those with you during this to better understand what's happening here. So our concern is students are struggling with accessing complex, vocab-rich, multi-step CASP questions. And so our focus for this year is we're going to really look at the blueprints, and we're going to look at those standards that really have all the weight and make sure our kids go deep into those standards so when they get to the CASP, they're able to work through the problems. We need to identify the key skills. And key skills, I mean things like be able to annotate, be able to provide evidence to support their claims, even stamina. You know, these 3rd graders, they get on these tests, and they're 5 paragraphs long, and these kids, it's a struggle. I'm going quickly. Okay. And then we want to make sure they experience the test. So the MARS tests are super important. We're going to be looking at those 3 times a year. We're going to let the kids really have a chance to go deep into it and teach to them, and our CAS interims, and they're going to be available to us this year. And then it's the vocabulary piece, developing vocabulary, because if you can't read the problem, you can't answer the problem. And so Kevin Clark is deep at Hamilton. I think 90% plus of our staff has been trained in it. And so I invite you to come out and see it in action. All right, so now another concern we have, we got to use multiple measures. We've been using CASP and for years, and we've been 3 times a year, we set goals, blah, blah, blah. And CASP is great because it really looks at the student knowledge of subject matter. Our kids know the standards. They really know these standards. But what they don't know is, and what we can't measure well enough is the critical thinking component, the problem solving, the analytical, analyzing data. So we really need to look at our MARS tasks and our CASP interims throughout the year and look at that data and go through it and see if our kids are learning those skills so they answer the questions. And then another concern is a high turnover of staff. So don't drink the water at Hamilton School, you may get pregnant. We had 60% of our teachers in grades 3, 4, and 5 leave mid-year last year. And few didn't come back because they moved out of state because it's cheaper to live somewhere else. When that happens, we have to retrain teachers. To work at Hamilton School and other of these great schools, you have to have 3 to 5 years of building capacity in a teacher to reach all those kids the way we do. So now we got to start over again. Very frustrating. And God bless these long-term subs, but they come to us with no training, basically classroom management, barely under their belt, and we really appreciate them showing up. So what do you do about it? So I blame Chris Koska for everything. So what I want to do is, he can't do it on his own, so what we're going to do at Hamilton School is we're going to start looking into our community and our parent community and find out and look for subs. Look for people who are qualified to be subs. And we're going to come in and we're going to bring a pool together. And we're going to train these folks. And we're going to have them shadow in the classroom. And these are the moms who are looking for extra money and people who are part of our community already. Our theory is that if they come in knowing, then they'll do a better job quickly. That ends my presentation. 7 minutes? Yes. No questions? Thank you.
All right, trustees, bring it back to you. Who wants to start it off? Trustee Nell, go ahead.
No.
I was wondering if you could go into a little more detail how what specifically did you do when you dug down deep to come up with that specific answer about vocabulary, for example, not being an issue? I mean, how did you come up with that?
Yeah, well, we looked at all the subgroups, and what we noticed quickly right off is ELs were not accessing the CASP. And kids, the Hispanic children, kids are learning a second language, dual language, and when we look at and we listen to the kids trying to muscle their way through a question without having the fluency of vocabulary, is hard to comprehend. And that's specifically what we need to look at our school. And also it's one of the predictors in the P3 movement for success is vocab. So those 2 things together is where we got to where we were. So then we're going to really focus on that, and we're going to look at the data and see what happens.
Yeah, I don't have evidence, but I suspect that the vocabulary issue goes beyond the ELA. I mean, second language students.
And that's true, but if you look at the subgroup of Caucasian middle class, the kids are doing
better,
exceptionally well on the CASP test. They can access the whole thing.
Okay, like I said, okay, great. Then I just wanted to acknowledge and congratulate on your willingness to build your own in the sense of a substitution pool. It's an innovative society, and you can't always just go out and get one. You have to make your own, and so I think that's to be congratulated. So
thank you.
Justine Mack.
Good stuff. Thank you, Steve. Just touching on what I saw from Sinaloa and the extracurricular, they're talking about sports after, and you're doing it too. Am I detecting a potential need to have the schools do some sort of organized thing together?
Okay, so I polled the Hamilton middle school students, there's 180 of them. 85% of my kids had never played a sport before. 85%. These are the kids mostly that are living in poverty. Of the 85%, 100% want it. They need it. Because if you don't get that sense of belonging at the high schools, for example, and to build that family and go just be part of something bigger than just the academic component. It really has, and build grit. That's huge for these kids to muscle through to graduation.
Trustee Scott.
So how many vacancies do we currently have of teachers at Hamilton?
Well, we're filled up now.
You're filled now.
We're filled now, and now we're beginning to do the heavy lifting, and that is building capacity in these teachers.
Okay.
So how do you do that?
I didn't know how many may still be permanent subs, or if several of our teachers are out on maternity leave when they were expected back, or, I'm just curious about the numbers.
Well, I
and where
hope
they're headed.
last year was an anomaly. Is that the right word? Yes. Vocab.
We hope.
Vocab.
We hope.
Yeah, we hope that it's something it impacted us greatly. I didn't mention our middle school numbers keep going up in CASP. And what these teachers have is longevity. You're talking Tanya Matsons and Brian McCoys and Sarah Garzas and all those folks that have a home in the district and have investment in the district.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Steve. I appreciate all you're doing at Hamilton.
Thank you.
Trustee Miller.
I'm interested in your discussion about athletics, not so much that it's a sport, but it's some other activity using some other part of your body, using either your hands or your physicalness besides just your head, and how it creates sense. And I know you have some youth groups on your campus as well. I mean, I Girl Scouts or Boy Scouts or Campfire, it looks. How much of your effort is outside of the academics and targeted at those cultural, the rest of the child?
Yeah, a lot, a ton. So enrichment's big. So for example, besides sports, now we have chess clubs because it builds stamina in students. So what we're trying to do is and we're working with a gentleman up in Seattle to bring chess from TK all the way to 8th grade. Those type of things to build the child up and make them well-rounded, I think it's going to have a huge impact on not only the grit, but the stamina, and also attach them with a sense of belonging wherever they go. We could either provide all students what Steve Hospital's kids have.
Yeah, of course, that's the right answer.
Right? And that's what they need because they have someone to walk alongside them. They have skill outside of academics.
Yeah, and there'll be years when they'll have some trouble in an academic topic and they'll carry their own ego and sense of self through those other things, and when they get through the hard spot, they'll still be whole.
Yep, totally agree.
Very cool, thanks.
Anybody? Thank you, Steve, very much.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you, Steve.
All right, well, thank you, Steve. So that was Hamilton. So next we have San Jose Middle School presenting, Principal Justin Mori. And hi, come on up.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for enduring me yet another year. This is going to be fun. Alrighty, up here starting off, we have a snapshot of San Jose Middle School's demographics. This year, we're about 726 students. That is down. We are in a period of declining enrollment. Last year, we were over 760. And like I said, we're down to about 726 this year. However, there is a demographic trend that we're starting to see, and that is our free and reduced lunch list. If you see the number of students we have in free and reduced lunch this year are 42.29%. That actually is an increase of over 5% over last year. So while we dropped about 40 students overall in our student population, we grew approximately that same number in students who are qualified for free and reduced lunch. So just a piece of data that we are aware of in terms of some changing demographics. In terms of who we are, last year we spent a good amount of time identifying who we are, because if I asked a staff member, what exactly is our vision here? I usually got 3 different visions, and it's work that we had not done for several years. And so our focus last year was really identifying a new vision for our school, where we decided that we at SJMS, I can barely read that from here, inspire and empower each other to be lifelong learners, community builders, and change makers. And we spent a lot of time looking at this and identifying these attributes that we want to see for ourselves and for our students. We also came up with our new graphic, which is student generated, and that was fabulous because it's wonderful to see student work, especially fantastic student work, that really represents who we are. A couple great things going on. We have our Katyas, and this is just a way that we can recognize a student in the moment for modeling the attributes that, and Chris didn't even look at me when I said that, modeling the attributes that we see in our vision. And so when we see a student modeling such behaviors, we can, I walk around with the cards in my pocket, and we can actually hand them out when we see students and acknowledge them for the good work that they're doing. About 2 years ago, when our science department really started focusing on PBL, our 7th grade science team started doing Project Green School. And this year they've actually changed where their timeline of their curriculum, so they're doing Project Green School at the beginning of the year, because what we really want to establish and develop is a green school overall. And beginning of the year started off, we've had recycling bins, now we have composting bins. Composting has been a work in progress, but even we've seen growth in the first couple months of school. And then finally, One to World in 6th grade. What's been fantastic is that our 6th grade teachers all went to the training in terms of the best ways to be using the Chromebooks, and we're really seeing our students and our teachers making use of them. We see in classrooms, we see Google Classroom being utilized by teachers, which is allowing students access in school and at home. We see students collaborating using Google Docs and Google Spreadsheets and doing different Google presentation, and creating their different projects together. So they're really having a lot of collaborative work through this technology. And we're looking forward to that because that's actually spreading into 7th and 8th grade even before we get into there with with their one-to-one devices. Some areas of focus, you're actually going to hear some similar things from what Steve's talked about, because as our teachers were doing their own data dives, they identified areas of focus that we want to focus on as well. One thing that I've been very proud of to see is in English language arts, our writing articulation from 6th, 7th, and 8th grade has been very strong. We've always had strong writers, and what we identified as a growth area is how to use evidence, what types of evidence there are, the validity of evidence, and citing sources, 2 very important key skills, especially in this day and age, as we see every day when we turn on the news. Because they're going to be evaluating argumentative writing, they're going to be creating their own argumentative writing, and when they are doing their step-up to writing work, they need to be able to use evidence correctly. And we're also seeing this spread into our science program, where they're using a similar model of claim, evidence, and reason. In terms of reading, once again, we have a strong reading culture on campus. All students have a book with them, or they're supposed to have a book with them at all times. But the focus this year is on nonfiction, and as Steve talked about, we focuses on annotation, close reading, guided questions, using those different strategies to really focus on what it is they're reading and making sense of what it is they're reading. Because we want them to understand the author's purpose, we want them to understand the evidence the author is using. We want them to understand the argument the author is using. We want to understand the different types of formats that the author may be using. And our team has really been fantastic about finding different reading resources, whether that's looking for something that has outside the norm of what they're used to seeing, which may have cultural relevance, or may touch on topics which have recently been, or last couple months, been important in the news and should be addressed. All right, in math. This is, I believe, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, this is, I think, our 3rd full year of using college preparatory mathematics, and that's been an interesting shift. We've had some changes staffing-wise in terms of mathematics as well, but overall, our teachers are implementing it well, and I feel like they're doing a pretty strong job of implementing CPM. And one of the things you talk about with CPM is the spiraling, so constantly hitting new topics while going back and touching on old topics, or previous topics, not old. But one thing that our teachers were noticing was that even with that spiraling, there were areas that our students need to focus on. And those, once again, coming up in our data dives, we were able to see that there were certain target areas we needed to touch on, but each year, those target areas might change. So, for example, what our 7th grade math team did this year is, at the beginning of 7th grade, all of our 7th grade students took the 6th grade final. That gave our teachers data on what are those key concepts that we should be touching on. They were then able to front load and focus on those concepts, all the while focusing on the CPM curriculum, allowing that spiraling to happen, but also touching on those areas that needed more work. In 8th grade in 8th grade math specifically, we're doing learning targets. And I know that's been addressed here at the board before. And I mean, it's just very exciting. You can see on the slide on the far right, depending on which way you're looking at it, that's basically a breakdown of two units. And the teachers have identified the learning targets during those units. Students take a pre-assessment. During that pre-assessment, they're focusing on what are they mastering and what do they need to work on. Then, in terms of their homework, you can see on the left, teachers are actually identifying questions within the homework which are tied to specific learning targets. And then students can take their assessments. While their pre-assessment is one large assessment, students can take the various assessments that they need to. It's broken down to, if they've mastered one, if they mastered 2A, they can focus on 2E because they haven't mastered that. They can take as many as they want at once, or they can take one if they so choose. But the focus is mastery. Third, our English language development. While 90% of my teachers have not been trained in Kevin Clark strategies, we have 4 incredible teachers who are teaching our ELD program, and we are definitely finding that when the program is implemented with fidelity, you see strong growth with your students. Back on our demographics page, you see 24 students were reclassified last year. But what you don't see is that we have 13 students who, while they weren't reclassified, they actually caused us to create a 4th level of instruction, where last year we had 3 levels in the CCT model. We had to do a 4th because they were exceeding that 3rd level, not quite ready for reclassification, but they needed a higher level of instruction. So we have every expectation that we'll see just as many students reclassified this year, and we expect that in addition to those 13. So we expect to see growth there. And like I said, when the program is done with fidelity, you do see a lot of growth, and we're seeing that in our benchmark assessments. What this year about is for us is focus. A lot of times we end up trying to do a great many things, and sometimes we don't do them as well as we want to, even though there's so many things in education that we want to do. This year we want to focus on those key areas and really see how we can support our students be successful and really grow in their learning. Thank you.
Wow, great job, Justin. Good information. All right, start with Trustee Miller.
Teach to mastery approach. So how do you cycle through the item? How do you, how does that work? When?
So basically the class.
I like the idea, I just want to understand.
No, I'm learning it too. So the 8th grade teachers have actually adjusted how they're grading, so they're using a specific rubric, and I couldn't explain that to you because I need it to be explained to me again. However, in terms of the Teach to Mastery, the class has been structured to allow for instruction, but then also time to review and focus on the assessments at the end of each week. So a student can take an assessment at the end of the week. A teacher will say to a student, you've clearly mastered this, you're able to do this, you need to take this assessment because you're ready to do it. And so then a student can then take one assessment. If they've mastered 2, they can do 2, they can do 3, but they've broken down those larger summative assessments into smaller pieces to support students focusing on mastering those particular areas.
Thanks. I'll give you a call. I'll come visit. Thanks.
Yep. Trustee Butler?
Question on the learning targets.
Mm-hmm.
I really like that. So was that the first time you've been doing that, or
this is the first year we've been
started doing
we just started doing learning
really,
targets this year.
That holds the teacher accountable, it holds the student accountable, and it's visible. I'm assuming it's up on the looks like it's up on the board, and those are aligned to the Common Core standards.
So those are aligned to the standards, and It's very interesting because it's focusing on mastery is different for all of us and our students, because a lot of times it gets lost with what's my grade. And so we're still navigating that. In a couple instances, the focus on mastery has been aided by, well, you'll get your grade up if you do this. So there's a little bit of that piece there. And I know we've had some discussions, at least in administrative meetings, about how we'd love to see a standards-based report card in the middle school. But I mean, it is a shift, mastery versus what's my grade. So.
Is that in every class that is?
The learning targets?
Yeah.
It's specific to math right now.
Okay.
I would say that's been more of a focus. But at the same time, I would say given the certain areas in English language arts that are being focused, those could be considered learning targets. And I mean, in science with doing NGSS, they are still, I mean, I think this is their second full year of really diving into NGSS. So they're still figuring out those DCIs and cross-cutting, I forget the other piece. Those cross-cutting curriculum. No, there's 3 C's.
So Steve spoke about data, you're speaking about data, so that's what I'm kind of looking for in each presentation here tonight, to see whose strength that is. Do you have somebody specifically at your school site that is your data person, let's say, your guru? Or
we have a couple people here and there who are very focused on data. In the past, I've had individuals who are.
Right.
I will say that, as Steve pointed out, it's good to look at multiple measures. That's one thing I definitely appreciate, whether it's our MARS tasks, common assessments, specific math, MAP, the benchmarks. I know that they're pain because they take long to grade, but it's writing.
Yeah.
But I think we need to look at that because, as Steve pointed out, they do show different things.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Trustee No.
On going back on your exhibits area of focus, I think they were the learning targets. I have a curiosity question. There's some code or reference numbers written alongside one of the exhibits. Could you go back?
Oh, there it
Up
is.
where it said must be done by Friday. The TAX EBZ below that.
Oh, yeah,
2V3.
those have to do, so that's another use of technology. So those codes are actually the test codes in order to get into the assessment. Our math teachers are using EDIMS in order to do all their assessments, and it actually goes along with what Steve was talking about before, where we're not sure how using the technology is impacting how they're connecting with their assessment, whether or not they're being tripped up by the technology itself, or it's just a lack of understanding. So one of the things that our teachers are focused on is that little code is that code to get into that assessment, and it's all done through EDIMS.
Excellent. You guys are learning to use the technology and to build databases that you can query later for personalized learning. So that's good. Thanks.
Thanks, Justin. I just had a quick comment. The fact that you're giving the 7th graders the 6th grade finals, so you kind of set a benchmark. I like that. I really do. And I think it's just part of like the multiple tests formative tests along the way. That's the starting point.
Yeah, thank you.
I think that's great. I wanted to talk a little bit about the implementation of the math intervention. How is that going?
We haven't started it yet.
Okay.
It's just, because unfortunately, we wanted to incorporate something during the school day, which we did last year. We did learn some lessons from what we did last year, and now we actually have identified that we need to focus more on 6th and 7th grade. But we haven't actually started up intervention after school because it is after school, and trying to get students to attend can sometimes be a challenge. So because some of our students they have to go home and take care of siblings. They have to take the bus, the only way to get home. So it's just that implementation is not quite there yet.
And how does that, when that starts up, how will that actually, how will those kids be identified? How will that be through the MARS test or?
So we would use their MAP scores, which they just, I want to say they did about a month ago.
Okay.
We'll use, I know they're doing MARS tasks to do some assessments, and they'll also be looking at the
constantly reevaluating throughout the year, right? Mm-hmm. Great.
Yeah, it's not something that we want to put a student in. I mean, usually we do them 2 days a week for an hour after school, so 2 hours a week. It's not something that we want to see a student in all year long, because then we're not being successful, and then they're not really Yeah, then it's not effective.
Perfect. Trustee Matt, thank you.
Only because I've heard the other two schools say this, but
Sports.
yeah, I'm just curious. Are you hearing the same thing?
You know, I'm not really hearing the same thing, but at the same time, I also know that a lot of our students are involved in extracurricular sports through Park and Rec or CYO. I mean, I just came from a game where Jim Larson was yelling at his child while he was playing basketball. I don't think Jim Larson's qualified to do that. But anyways, while I was there, I ran into a number of my own students. And if on afternoons when I'm at the school late, if I walk up to the gym and students are practicing like CYO or Park and Rec, I see my students there. So I'm not saying that we wouldn't benefit from it. And I mean, I think it's a wonderful thing to add to a school community. At the same time, I haven't actually heard that.
All right, Trustee Miller, we'll wrap it up.
I think it was in the 80s, maybe the 70s, when Prop 13 passed. Middle school sports were everywhere, and they got stripped from all the state schools in the state of California. Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
When I was attending Sinaloa,
Yeah.
the gymnastics team kaput,
Gone
just like that.
Overnight.
Yep.
Yeah.
Back in the
That's
old days,
exactly
we had
what-
football teams
1978.
for San Jose,
Just so you know.
Sinaloa, and
78.
So clearly, at some point, it was acknowledged as a valuable program. It's just it was an affordability issue for decades, and maybe good luck on how you're working with it. So,
yeah, Prop 13 was tough to education. All right. Thank you, Justin.
Thank you.
Great presentation.
All right, thank you, Justin. Up next is Sinaloa. We have Principal James Larson.
No, that's not true. And so, thank you for having me. Excellent. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. We're gonna start a pool next year with all the principals about timing. I have to figure out the grid and the school and the name and what time, and I don't know. There's something in there because everybody's gonna heckle each other for the time that they get, because we've been prompted so much by Superintendent Hugaboom about being on time. Yes. So I'm going to get going right away. Sinaloa, just a couple pieces of demographics. So we actually happen to be an anomaly in the district. We're growing in enrollment. So last year we were just under 800. This year we're actually, as of today, we're 825 students. Interestingly enough, a number that we see creeping up at Sinaloa that's a little, I don't want to say it's counterintuitive, but it is new. Over the last 3 years since I've been there, as the population has shifted, we have seen a steady increase in our students that are on free and reduced lunch. And right now we're at 25%, and a couple of years ago that was closer to 22%. And we are also seeing an increase in our Hispanic population. So two interesting, and when I say Hispanic population, not necessarily EL population, I think it's important to delineate those two things. So we're seeing some of those demographics change from when I was in Sinaloa back in the 90s. In terms of school vision, so I happen to have majored in philosophy, so I'm all about a philosophy quote wherever I can grab it. But we really believe in excellence every day, and it's just to read off that quote: excellence then is not an act but a habit. And so we believe that there is habituation that happens, and when you're coaching kids up and you're requiring that they kind of reach for the stars, that they really do rise to that expectation. Best of the best, man. We've got a fantastic place over there. I wish more people would come and visit, and not the news vans when like bad stuff happens, but all the other days when the really good stuff is happening at our school. And so one of the things that I am just so appreciative of are our students, and so our Student Advocacy Council, that is something that I care deeply about, and that's why I had them come tonight, and that's why I wanted to show you. So I'm not going to talk about that because you heard about it a little bit more, but we have fantastic kids. We have a wonderful parent community that is in the neighborhood. I feel fortunate because I live in the neighborhood too, so I don't just get to connect to people in the office, but I also get to see people in my neighborhood and out running and walks and at the Little League games and all those kinds of things. So I feel very fortunate to be connected to the community, and that people really give you some honest feedback too. It's not always great feedback, but you get the honest feedback. And then obviously we have a fantastic staff, great picture, handsome guy. Realized I'm wearing the same shirt and tie right now that I am in that picture. Just saw that, so I'll change more often next time. A few lessons learned, so key successes. So last year I talked about, I had that graphic of a plane versus a helicopter, so taking off versus lifting off. And so we did a fantastic job actually at the end of last year of starting to take off. Some of that work was involved with our equity imperative. And so again, Sinaloa is a place that's a little demographically different than other places in the district, but we really still have that deeper call to make sure that all kids are successful. So we took on that equity imperative. We did some work last May, and then as the years progressed this year, really building on some strategies that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, but work on our equity imperative, and then also project-based learning. It's happening across the campus. We also have, and when we think about it in math, because projects are like a thing for people in math, it's more of problem-based learning, and that's how that P kind of changes for math. Areas for improvement. So professional learning, we had a great plan last year. We stuck to it. We saw it through. What we saw last year was there was a lot of one and done work where we had one day, we hit on the topic or the subject, and then we moved on after one time, and we really didn't revisit it. So our professional learning plan that's in this year's plan, you see several themes recur all year long. So we're going to make sure that people have the necessary training and support to be able to meaningfully implement those different strategies. Data is also an area of improvement. I heard someone asked a little earlier, who's your data person on campus? I'm the data guy, and I get to work with Alex in IT, who has been very helpful, but we need to do a little bit more work on data and building people's capacity other than my capacity around data. Another thing kind of that links up with that is our ILT, or our instructional leadership team, and those are our department chairs, those teacher leaders that are on campus, and so leveraging them to be able to take on some of that data work and really lead their groups in a positive direction. I have this bottom part there for Clark Consulting and Training, which is our ELD, and so that's a key success. It's fantastic. We've seen great growth with those students, but it's also an area of improvement, right? We're not there yet, and so one of the things that we're looking at for next year in terms of our ELD classes, I think is similar to what Justin was talking about, but expanding that program. And right now it's a one-period class, and so our ELD students take a one-period class, and rather than an elective, they take ELD. I think what we're going to look at next year is replacing their English and history class, their core class, with a double ELD, which will get them they'll have the opportunity for more skill building. They'll also have the opportunity for an elective, which is something that's an equity issue that we're identifying on site. Okay, so a couple of our key strategies. So one of the things, some people call this close reading. Close reading is a little different. Critical reading is an avid strategy, and I don't want to go too deeply into this. It's a pretty complex thing, but it's an avid strategy. One of the first things you do with critical reading is you create a reading purpose. So just imagine most of us, when we sit down as adults and we're reading, we know what we're reading and we know why we're reading it, right? If it's a board report, if I'm reading a book, I'm reading it and I'm reading it for a purpose. Most kids don't know what the purpose is of the reading unless you tell them this is why you're reading it. So one of the key components of critical reading is to create a reading purpose for students. Another one of the key components is marking text. And then the third part is taking the reading purpose and marking text and moving it into writing. And so there's a couple examples up there of a board of, I'm going to go on because Kessa just gave me this 6-minute warning. So learning targets, you've heard all about learning targets, and we're working on those too. Another way to think about learning targets, and you may have heard power standards in the past or anchor standards, but the idea is there is such a wide breadth of things that we need to do that we really need to narrow those things down. We can't tackle it all. We need to narrow it down to the most high leverage things. And so working backwards from those essential skills that we need to know kids have mastery in, identifying the anchor standards, and then seeing the daily objective. So we have a couple different examples of our daily objective. On the left-hand side, it's a 6th grade math teacher who has a daily objective, and I can't read it from here, but the second part is have fun, because that's, you need to have fun in math. And then we have a couple different daily objectives for one of our algebra classes. Teacher mentoring is another really important thing that we're working on here at Sinaloa. And so what we know is when kids feel connected to school, they're going to be more successful. We know that we have a certain group of kids that are not connected to school, and so we need to be able to intervene with them. I'm going to be leaning on Steve probably a couple years down the road, because we're not as far down the road in the mentoring program as he is, but probably leaning on Steve down the road to be able to build our mentoring program from where it is right now. So just a little bit about that. Teachers really wanted to do some teacher mentoring. I was 100% supportive of it. One of the things that we looked at were criteria. And so we had a bunch of different criteria to try and figure out who the kids are that needed the help, rather than just saying, hey, this kid seems sad and I think I want to work with them. Really looking at data and saying, are there kids that really need a lot of help? There are, and so our criteria, and I want to read them off so I don't goof it up. So we created a spreadsheet, and this is where I got into some of that data. We created a spreadsheet, and if a student had a 1 or 2 on CASP, so was below grade level on CASP in math or in English language arts, they made the list. Or if they had a GPA of 2.0 or lower, they made the list. If they had a certain number of disciplinary or interventions around behavior, they made the list. If they had below a 95% attendance rate this year or last year, they made the list. Or if they were new to the school, they made the list. So that, using those criteria, we generated a list of roughly 550 kids out of 825, so a lot. Well, excuse me, gosh, shut up. Then what we did was we narrowed that list, and we looked at kids who were hitting multiple markers, right? And so if you make the list, there were some kids made the list and they're just new to the school. You know, they're getting all A's and they're doing just fine. We wanted to see those kids that were low on CASP, low in GPA, and had other stuff going on to be able to say these are the kids that are highest in need. So what? So that's what Jim said that I need to do. So what? You know, your presentation. So what? What do we care? Here's the so what. And I'm going to look at that graphic on the left. We know what equality looks like when everybody gets the same. The far right is, we know what the reality is too. There's kids standing in a ditch and they don't have a chance. And what our job is to create that equity, which leads into the second graphic there, and that's what we talk a lot about at Sinaloa, is locating kids within the sphere of success, making sure that all of our students, not just some of our students, are located within that sphere of success. Time.
How'd he do?
I guess I'm the winner. I don't know what to say.
Thank you, Jim. Another great job. Whoever's over the longest gets to buy the pizza for everybody else. Trustees, Trustee Scott, let's start.
Just comment. I'm totally impressed. I'm absolutely loving the teacher mentor list. I think that is incredible, and I'm so happy to hear you guys are reaching out. And I love how you've dialed down on the data to identify those kids that need that extra mentoring and that extra help. So kudos to you and your staff. I'm thrilled to see that. I'm also, can you touch a little bit more on the critical thinking piece in terms of the AVID strategy? That looked amazing, and I'm just curious with that AVID strategy, is that something that is also down in the grade school levels to that? Does it dial down to that?
Yeah, so the cool part about critical reading, and I should have said it, is it is something that you can do in any class. So it is not English language arts. The expectation at Sinaloa is that math teachers, science teachers, everybody is using it. PE, doesn't matter what
Teach
content
them how to
area
pull
you're in.
out content and...
And so what I think we see a lot of the same things that Justin and Steve and I think everybody are seeing, which is you have to be a reader first, whether it's math, science, or history, or English. You've got to have the vocabulary and you've got to be able to access the text. And so what we want to do, and why I'm talking about critical reading, and I didn't do a good job, sorry, I was trying to be on time,
it's okay.
was it is something for everybody to do. This is not just the work for English teachers, and that often happens. This is the work for science teachers, for math teachers. It's for everybody on campus. When you're digging into it, and I can't really speak to that elementary level because I haven't had enough training there, but this is an AVID strategy, is something that they would engage in elementary. It could be something they engage in elementary. I know it is a piece of AVID in elementary. But really the idea is you can differentiate in a ton of different ways, right? And so when you're looking, for example, a reading purpose for an eighth grade class around say this. So this actually, that assignment right there is a poem about God. What's the name of it? It's a Billy Joel song, "Good Night Saigon." So they evaluated the lyrics of the song and then related it to what they're learning in history. So that was a pretty complex reading purpose when they were listening to the song and going over those lyrics. For a sixth grader, it's going to be not a lot more simple, but a little more simple, so they're able to access and have a meaningful purpose for reading and marking the text. Did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Ish? Okay.
Enough. I like it.
Trustee Miller?
Thank you.
Your focus on reading for purpose. I live in a technical world, and everybody I deal with, we don't read poetry. We read technical manuals. We try to get systems to come up. Maybe you read newspaper articles about systems that failed because they got hacked by somebody overseas and a million emails disappeared. But reading for purpose is a very powerful construct, particularly in the nonfiction world. And your example's fiction here, but think through how well that works in a nonfiction setting. It is such a critical skill, and a lot of people I run into in practice don't have that.
And
as adults.
Yeah, and I didn't name it, and I'll beg your pardon. One of our strategies in 7th grade English is to focus on critical reading as a mechanism for engaging with nonfiction text. So it's something that is very important, yeah.
Anybody else? Okay, great. I also wanted to, the only comment I really had, it's great. I would commend you on your mentoring program, because I had to write all over this for that. Good job, and wish you success in that.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, well, thank you. I guess we're giving the plazas, right? All right, and just Shelley, to clarify your question, so this year we have 3 of our elementary schools implementing AVID strategies in grades 4 and 5. So that's Hamilton, Olive, and Lusa, and so that's something that we are seeing a need at starting earlier, younger.
It is. It's such an important. It's an important strategy to know how to pull out content and reading and why you're reading. It's just.
Yes.
I know you know. Thank you.
Yeah, no, great question. Thank you. All right, so now we have Kessa, and she's going to be in first place. So thank you, Kessa, principal of Marin Oaks, Nexus, and Nova.
Hi.
Thank you so much for reading all 3 of the single plans. Tonight I have been asked to focus only on Marin Oaks, but before I do, I just want to say right now we have only 4 students at Nexus, 2 7th graders, 2 8th graders. Last year, Nova was really successful. Of our graduating class, 29% of them went on to, or make sure it's right, 29% of our graduating students went to a 4-year college, and then 93% matriculated to post-secondary education, and we received a 6-year WASC accreditation, so that was a great success. Yay. Okay, so looking at Marin Oaks, there's a lot of things that are happening at Marin Oaks that are fantastic. I want to talk about some challenges that we are experiencing. And so I am going to read a lot of it just to make sure that I am respectful of the time and that I don't miss anything. So the first slide you see here is our demographic breakdown for our enrollment by ethnicity. The first thing you're going to notice is our school percentages are disproportionate of our district. And what I want you to see is that we have 78 students. 21.79% are English learners, while only 6.68% is the average between the 2 large high schools. Then we also have 19.23% are special ed students at Marin Oaks, and only 8.25% are the average between the 2 big high schools. And then finally, the other one to really point out is our free and reduced lunch is 70.51%, whereas between the 2 high schools, the average is 28.25%. I point out these percentages in particular because it's important to remember the students we serve when reviewing our data. Okay, our mission at Marin Oaks is to provide a personalized learning environment that fosters a collaborative culture, focusing on credit recovery and academics to help build a bridge to post-secondary education. It's important to note that Marin Oaks students are not eligible to meet the A through G requirements, so our main focus is helping them prepare for community college and the workforce. Next, we have our accomplishments. This first picture is of our cooking class. Our English teacher, John Mattern, worked tirelessly last year to get grants and funding to get a cooking class going. And it didn't take place until this year. We have a revamped kitchen, brand new stove, refrigerator, oven. And every Thursday, 14 students work with Mr. Mattern alongside a guest chef each week. And then they prepare a meal to serve the entire Hill campus, including Compass, who is a guest on our campus, and then all of the other kids and staff that are on our campus. Then we have our Bridges program. And the mission of our Bridges program is to build a connection between the classroom environment and the experience of the career world via a hands-on approach and a combination of college courses, job shadows, and internships. Students focus on practical skills and experiences of choosing and pursuing a career. Last year we had 16 grads from the Bridges program, and 18 are currently enrolled this year. Next, we have our character trait. So each month we focus on a different character trait, and these are students that we celebrated for, I forget which one this was, but each month there's a different character trait that we recognize students that display the character trait inside the classroom. And then we also have the report card. And so each quarter, students receive a character report card, and as you know, one of our 6 C's is character, and so this is a great way to assess those students. They also do a self-assessment. We were selected as a model continuation school last year, and we received a 6-year WASC accreditation as well, clear, by the way. So we're very happy. Not to another 6 years. Okay. So data results. So our key successes, 90.5% of our students passed algebra with a C- or better, and that is largely in part because of our mandatory tutorial. So it's important to remember that these students have failed algebra usually 2 or 3 times, and so they do not like it. They have a really hard time with it, and it is important for them to find success this last try. Mandatory tutorial is a program after school where the students have to stay if they have a C- or below. They're required to stay to receive extra help, to retake tests, complete missing assignments, redo low-scored assignments. Our graduation rate decreased slightly from 98% to 97.4%, but it is still higher than the state average, which is 83.2%. We also keep students enrolled for a 5th year, if needed, if they are willing to participate and attend school regularly. So area of improvement. So data, we struggle with data because a lot of it is insignificant because we are so small. And so it is important for us to find the pieces that are really relevant for our population. We are going to be doing a deep data dive this Thursday with Dr. Jan Derby for our staff development in the afternoon. But while looking at the data, you'll see here that ELA, 0% exceeded, and only 31% met standards. In math, 0% exceeded, and 0% met standards on the CASP. Interventions we have in place to address these challenges are mandatory tutorial, as I explained just a bit ago, one-to-one teaching with support teachers in the spring, map testing and reading to check for understanding and see where students need additional support, Ascend online math as a supplemental resource for struggling math students. All math students take the MARS task and CASP practice tests. Our math teacher implements a plan to build in once she realizes where they need the most support. Kevin Clark Consulting for our ELD classes. And then to help all students build skills in vocabulary and ELA, we have a strong focus on literacy across all subjects, including an enrichment program this year where 10 of our students are going to be, they're writing a book right now, each of them, and it's going to be published. Okay. And then our third focus is on our dropout rates, because even though it is low, it's only 2.6% of our seniors, 3.8% for all students. Even one is too many. So some key strategies to help struggling students stay in school is the partnership with adult education. Last year, Adult Ed hired a counselor, which proved to be very successful in transitioning our adult age students who are no longer interested in being enrolled full-time. Our other interventions include Bridges, our tutorial, counseling services from our BACR counselor, and our academic support counselor. And what our Bridges coordinator does is she really tries to meet with the kids who are just not connecting with school, figure out where their interest is after school, and getting them involved in an internship or vocation to keep them fired up about education to understand the importance. We also do home visits with North Bay, constant relationship building between staff and students. We even have a connection list where each year we ask the students if they feel connected, and if they don't, we make sure that we find an adult that they can connect with before the end of the school year. We'll be doing that connection list this November and sometime in the next few weeks. And then we provide a safe learning environment where every student is valued, and our staff focuses on providing a positive learning experience, simultaneously focusing on their well-being. And finally, a picture of our graduates. Only a few of them made it there because they were a little late, but that's okay. By the time the graduation started, everybody was there. A picture of our graduates, because this is what it's all about: helping our students reach success, graduate, and be prepared to be productive citizens in life after high school.
Thank you, Kessa.
Okay, thanks.
Good job. All right, trustees' comments?
What day was that free lunch?
Fridays, every single Friday, 12 o'clock. Really, I would love you to come.
You
That would be
should go.
fantastic. You should, yeah.
Trustee Aguilar?
Not this Friday, there's no school.
Oh, darn.
Well, this is just wonderful. I mean, every single thing that I was reading is like, man, I wish all schools would do this. And where was
We have a
I?
small population,
Where was
so it's
I
much
when this-
easier.
I know, but it's just in a perfect world.
Right.
This is perfect. So thank you so much. I was wondering about the mandatory tutorial for math.
It's for all core subjects.
Oh, so it's not only math. Okay,
But
great,
that's the
great.
tutorials that really helps our students that are having trouble with math. It gives them that extra time.
And that's after school.
It's
right?
either before school, after school, or at lunch. They have to attend at least 4 out of the 5 days.
Okay, and is it and because it's mandatory, is it only for
Students who have a C- or below.
yes, but only for Marine Oaks, and that's it? Or
Only for Marin Oaks.
only for Marine Oaks. And it's free, and
Yes.
parents.
It's built into the teacher's day. So the teachers, that is part of what is expected of a Marin Oaks teacher, is to make sure that they hold mandatory tutorial. They give me a list every Thursday by 3 o'clock. I print up the list. I then send it right back out to all of the teachers. They post it so that the students know that they're on for the following week. They have to look at the list and see, oh my gosh, I'm on for 3 classes. And then they have to figure out how they're going to get to each class. And so they might go in the morning for math, and then after school for history. And once they have a C or above, they no longer have to attend.
That's great, because I get so many parents just telling me that one of their main complaints and frustrations is that there's no tutoring for them,
Right.
Especially with math, and they have to. A lot of parents pay for private tutoring with their own pocket money.
Right. And our kids would never be able to afford that.
Right,
So
right. No,
we make
so
sure
I
we
think-
implement it inside their day. And then it gives them that chance to retake tests too and complete missing assignments and just redo those low scored assignments.
Yeah, and it works. So, thank you so much.
Greg?
I love the tutoring. That's awesome, and it flies right into what we saw in DLAC, where the families there want to see more after school opportunity and tutoring to help the kids. So just how do you manage to get the resources, to get the teachers to do it, to fit into the schedule?
We have a shorter day, so
Okay.
we only teach the 240 minutes, and so they are able to go until after school, so it works out that way.
Okay.
So it's and they also, some of them give up their lunch because they want the kids. Our teachers, we have a really amazing staff where they do whatever it takes to make sure that our students succeed.
It's almost like an intervention in a sense.
It's absolutely
academic intervention.
It's absolutely an academic
And
intervention.
I'm just wondering if there's a way we could do it with the 2 other high schools, but maybe we don't have the minutes.
I think funding is a big piece too, though, because
Minutes,
I know
yeah,
that
funding,
I don't know if I'll speak to it, but I know that the library isn't able to be open at Novato
Mhm.
High because they don't have the funding. And that's something that's really important, right, is for them to be able to get that time in between sports or after school activities, for them to have that time to tutor and
But the automatic nature of them, as soon as boom, C-, you're in.
Yes.
That's
Now, the
the key.
students aren't all excited about attending, right? So we have to we have incentives for them attending, and we also have consequences. So if they do not attend, because sometimes they don't attend, we put them on what's called in-house suspension. And so that next day, they're in the office, and they're not allowed to leave until they stay for tutorial after school. And so we get them there one way or another. So some of them are willing and some of them are not so willing, or they know that, oh my gosh, I'm going to be on in-house, so can I just go today at lunch and after school?
Right.
Sure.
Right.
And isn't that where they sit next to you
Yes.
the entire day? Good. I like that. Sometimes it takes a little babysitting, to get the message across. So
Right.
excellent job, Cassie. You're just amazing. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Casa.
Okay, thank you so much.
Manuela, hold on, Kessa, one sec. I think we have a couple more questions,
Oh, okay,
comments.
sorry.
Manuela, do you want to add anything? After all.
Well, I think Miss Early should explain our new tardy policy.
Oh, yeah?
Which is amazing.
Oh, they're excited about
A lot
that.
of students are, it's a good new policy that she made, so.
So we'll see. We'll see. I don't know how amazing it is. We'll see if it works. So we have a lot of kids that have trouble getting to school, and we used to have detention for the time that they were tardy, and they would serve the detention, but they didn't get anything for it. So now what they're doing is they're coming in after school to serve tardy recovery, so that way it won't count against them and lose credit, and they'll be inside of the class with the teacher getting extra help where they wherever they missed. So if they missed 15 minutes of second period, they're now in that second period class getting that extra help. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Perfect. Trustee Miller, you had a question, I think, or
It's
comment.
a point. Your model of making sure that if they're having a problem, either C minus whatever the test is, and that triggers additional support is really a teach to mastery model.
Yes.
And you should take full credit for taking what's a very progressive view of education and having, I think you've been doing this now for 10 years, that same model.
Yes.
I think you were there before anybody had a word for it. But I would like to acknowledge that you
Thank
do
you.
run that program with that success.
Because we're so small, we're able to try a lot of things. So we did restorative circle before restorative justice existed. So there's a lot of things that we're able to try because we are small and because we have a staff that is willing.
And it gets you to a 6-year WASC approval unconditional. Isn't that amazing?
Oh, lucky. I feel very lucky. Thanks.
Great job, Kessa. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Kessa. So next we have Novato High School. We have Principal Matt Baldwin presenting his site plan.
Clicker. I was actually going to ask Mr. Assad Carey to come over here and do it for me, but I don't want to put you on the spot, Assad. So, thank you for having me tonight. Obviously, there's a lot of great things happening at Novato High School. As you can see up here, Gold Ribbon School. We're just winning CIF championships every year, thanks to a very fortunate team. MSA, we have I don't know if you guys have seen this, but this is a mural that our Dreamers Club is doing right now with a renowned muralist. So that's coming. Here are our demographics, nothing new to the school board or anybody at NUSD. It's pretty much almost similar to what we saw last year and in previous years. We're at 1438, so we're going up a little bit. We're not going to feel the bubble drop or burst, I guess, for a little while. And I think the specialized programs we have in medical career pathway and MBI and MSA are always going to keep recruiting kids from outside the district as well. The mission and vision these have been created this year with our entire, all of our stakeholders in our community, but specifically our staff, as we're going through the WASH process. So that's our mission and vision. Obviously, the mission is what the community is, how the community views us, and what what they expect from our school and our school community. And the vision is what we're looking at from the inside, looking out, and what our expectation of our students and of ourselves are. And that's my beautiful little animation. CASP results, this is important. If you look at the CASP results, a lot of times it's doom and gloom, especially when you group as an entire district. But from my perspective, we went down in English, we went down in math, and those are two things that we need to address. However, if you look at the local districts that surround us, The only district or schools that competed with us in math were TAM Union on their average, where they were above us in math, and we need to raise that. But in English, we beat everybody. So even though we went down, we still were well above everyone else around us. So that's significant, and we're way above the state averages. And I would never want to compare us to the state averages. Great things happening at Novato High School. Like I said before, we have the medical career pathway that's in year 1. We have the North Bay Innovation School that's in year 1. MSA, which is in year 14, Marin School of the Arts. Our AVID program is robust. We'd like to kind of push that more school-wide. The ROTC has 90 students, is looking to increase that. They've been doing a lot of recruiting campaigns to get students onto our campus and then also go out and do some outreach in the surrounding areas and in our own district. I really pride myself and our staff and our community on the safe campus that we have. You don't see, actually just last week I saw 2 people arguing in the hallway. It's the first time in 4 years I've seen anybody argue in the hallway. And it got put down very quickly, and we informed the students that's not what we do here at Novato High School. So, but it is a rarity to see any kind of disagreements or anything. And I was talking to one of our teachers, Jason Searle, that when he went to school there, it was once a week there was a fight. So it is a completely different campus than it was 10, 15 years ago, not to age Jason Searle. Students are involved. We try to get the parents and the community involved as much as possible. We have a neighborhood night with our musical, which is Boys from Syracuse. Neighborhood night is November 29th. Our MSA students are going to be out walking. The musical theater students are going to be walking the neighborhood, handing out flyers to give a free neighborhood night November 29th. But that's just one example of lots of neighborhood flyers we've done. I personally have walked out there 5 different times and done flyers. On Washington and Cambridge and Hayes. So we're all over the community trying to make sure that people are involved with what we're doing. What we're doing is amazing. We want them to know. Come and see it and view it. Student voice, as Assad knows, he's probably involved in almost all of them. Student Senate is one thing that ASB came up with leadership came up with this year, where every single teacher sends one class rep to the Student Senate once a month to kind of discuss different things that are happening in the school, then make sure their voice is heard to the students in leadership. We have our Student Advisory Committee, which is tackling a couple of different issues. They're looking at a possible wellness center, looking at supporting ELD. And so they're tackling real issues. They're not coming in and talking about parking or traffic or anything, or the food at lunch, which I'm sure they would love to talk about those things. They're looking at how do we really make a lasting impact on our campus. And so I applaud Assad and everyone else on the Student Advisory Committee for what they're doing. We have our Marin School, the Arts Advisory, and our Captain's Circle, which is all the captains from all of our athletic teams. They're going still for the 2nd year in a row. We have their new facilities, which everybody is very excited about with the bond measure. They're going to be coming soon. And then one thing that we talked about with DLT today was our graduate portfolio or graduate profile and our senior portfolio defense. We've been working on that for 3.5 years, even before you came around. But what's exciting is that Jim has put a whole new life on it. And then obviously our collaboration with BIE and with Envision Partners has really kind of put us over the hump on what we're trying to do and what the expectations are. So we're about to unveil that in the next 2 months with the freshmen, and that will be exciting. The class of 2021 will have to defend their 4 years at Novato High School and defend that they've obtained the 60s through 4 artifacts, which would include the capstone projects that we already do. Lessons learned and areas for improvement. Hopefully you can see that slide. The things that I'm passionate about that need to change, it obviously is the A through G rates need to go up. I think the data is a little misleading. I don't think it's accurate, I'll be honest with you. But that being said, it still needs to go up. There's lots of students that their dream school is University of Nevada, Reno. If you try to convince them to go and change that Algebra 2 grade from a D to a C minus, they tell you, I got better things to do. So there's lots of things we need to do to make sure that we're getting accurate data. But also, we need to make sure that they understand that we're trying to have them graduate from Novato High School with as many opportunities as humanly possible, which includes being A through G eligible. We're going to start in the next 2 weeks talking to teachers about their DNF list. If we have 48 pages front and back of DNF lists, especially multiple DNFs, why are we having that? And what's the correlation between the grades earned, the assessments, and then CAS scores as well? So we're going to be looking at that. Our community partnerships with A through G rates will also help. Math systems, I think Jim's talked about this before, but we have to look at our instructional strategies, our pedagogy, our grading, our common assessments. We have to look at all of those things, developing common assessments, and then our work with our Cali Cooperative and consistency among the grade level teams. In math, it shouldn't be the lottery. It shouldn't be, oh, I got lucky because I got this teacher. And unfortunately, in education, a lot that happens, but specifically in math. So, so we're really looking at consistency amongst the grade level teams, as well as how we are looking at assessing students and how we are looking at doing progressive grading as well. The big one there for me too, just listening to what everybody else is talking about tonight, is data. How are we getting data? We're data poor at Novato High School. We have the CASP and we have a year and a half of MAP testing. That's it. So we have to really look at our common assessments, and I think common assessments with a lot of secondary teachers is a dirty phrase because they think of it as something that's going to infringe on their autonomy, and in all reality, it's not that way at all. There's lots of different ways to assess students, and we can look at building that together and having something that we can react to in the moment, not wait until a summative autopsy with the CASP at the end. So. And these are some of the specialized programs that we got going on. And the goal is obviously to give opportunities to students, make sure that those are open opportunities and equal access to everyone that comes on campus, and that we're graduating happy Hornets that are A through G eligible at the end of their path. So, and then we're going in the right direction. Am I under?
Happy Hornets. Good job.
Thank you.
Assad, do you have anything you'd like to add? That was a lot of good stuff. Not to put you on the spot.
Well, I would say that I'm enjoying that the Student Advisory Council. I feel like that we can really make a difference through everything that we talk about bi-monthly. The MSA programs, they're very taught well. My teacher, I'm in a digital arts program, and we're about animation and 3D models. And it's just, he's on a level where he goes in depth with everything so that you're not left out and you just know what you're doing. Because 3D modeling is hard. It takes lots of time, there's lots of patience, things can go wrong all the time. And I think he's doing a really swell job.
Great. Perfect. Thank you. Trustees, any comments? Greg?
The DNF lists, obviously, it's an important thing. And this is probably just, one-off comments I've heard. But are we pulling the parents into these conversations early and often? Because I'm hearing sometimes that parents are finding out about this stuff too late. And I don't know if it's true, but it's just something I've heard.
Yeah, that's going to be part of the process of communicating with the teachers and finding out, okay, why are there so many DNFs? What are you doing? What's kind of the remediation with the student? But also, how are we communicating that with the parents? It's not enough to wait until 6 weeks till a progress report to do that. And so that's going to be part of our communication and our discussion with the teachers to find out what are we doing and what support do they need. Because that to me is the A through G rates are big, but the DNF list tells me a lot more. And looking at kind of the gap analysis between the assessments and the DNF list, are they matching? So,
Trustees, anyone else? Okay, Trustee Miller.
So same concern around the DNF. We've heard multiple campuses talk about a teach to mastery model. And DNF list seems to me more like too bad here's where we landed, as opposed to how do we take the steps to move forward. And you've got some peers here who understand this way better than I do, and I'm sure that they would be more than happy to have you buy them coffee and share.
I would love to. And the concept of standards-based grading and teaching to mastery, and with math, we're looking at teaching to learning targets, which is the first step. And what's ironic is that the math department has been the department on our campus that has been the most progressive since I've gotten there. It's the 4th year of doing CPM. Good, bad, or indifferent, how people feel about it. They're trying different approaches. With traditional mathematics, all of the SED kids and ELD kids and a lot of other kids failed, and no one seemed to care. Now, some more prominent kids are failing, and now there's people that have an opinion. And so I think it's one of those things where it's unfortunate, but I think our math department is trying to do a lot of progressive things, especially with grading to learning targets. Taking grading as a process, looking at the spiraling like we talked about earlier with, I think Justin and Jim talked about kind of spiraling, always coming back to things that have been taught previously. And then I think looking at increasing the measurement for the future tests, so that they if you know it later on, then you should get the points for it when you take it. So
good luck on that trip.
Thank you.
I appreciate your honesty about the data, that it's poor and it needs, so I encourage you to take reins of that, you as a leader of that school, and if you're not comfortable with it, try to get comfortable with it.
I agree.
So I don't know how you can make adjustments without not having data in front of you.
Yep.
Otherwise you're spinning your wheels, and thank you for putting the areas of improvement, just owning it and saying this is what we need to work on, and I like that. So, and the DNF list, we've been there before, it's been at this table. And we just sort of, we highlight it, and then it kind of goes away, and then it comes back, and so we need teachers to make that part of their culture.
Yep.
Part of what they do and respond, and it's that personalization that we're putting into our vision that our teachers need to step up and provide a personalized education.
Yep. Well, that's what we're trying to do with the DNF list, is personalize it with our teachers. So we're trying to model that, when we see this many DNF, we have to have a conversation and figure out what's happening here and how we can support them.
Trustee Scott.
Kind of around that same line, what are we doing in terms of any kind of tutoring for these kids that are on the DNF list? Are we setting up any kind of programs to help them be successful, to raise that grade and master the content?
Yep. Yeah, so that's one of, we have after-school tutoring that's free, Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
And the parents are aware?
Oh, yeah, we've sent so much information out about that. Yeah, we send it out it's all part of the orientation and registration process. We send it out in the e-news. We send it out in the What's the Buzz. And we can continue to do that. I think it's the personal touch from the teachers calling and touching base with the parents, and then touching base with the teachers and saying, you need to go. Obviously, at the secondary level, and this is my experience as an administrator and then as a teacher, is that if you don't have it built into the school day, it's hard to get those kids to go. And so, we have a lot of, I would say most of the kids that have multiple D's and F's have been met with and told you need to go to tutoring, and they just don't go. And unfortunately, I'm not in a position where I can mandate it, but because I can't mandate my teachers to be there.
Can we do that? Jim, can we mandate that?
I would be curious how many of
Just
those
be curious
kids
if you're on the
sport.
DNF list.
True. Yeah.
If you're on the DNF list, either you can't do a sport or you have to do the tutoring.
I agree.
I mean, they have to own this, and we have to help them want to be successful.
Yeah, and that's why when we were on the best part of the Late Start Committee last year, we were talking about if you build it into the school day, if there's some kind of a tutorial built in, then it's very easy for an English teacher to staple that tutorial pass and say, you got to go.
We might want to. When my children attended Hill Middle School, what they did, they had a large population that wasn't doing well. And what they did was they carved out 5 minutes of each day, and their last period was a study hall. And every child went to their homeroom study hall. But if there was a particular subject that they were struggling in, they got a pass from that teacher to go to the teacher's class that they were struggling in and do that. And I have to, my daughters were doing competitive gymnastics at that time, and it really, really helped one of my children in particular who was struggling with math, with algebra, and it helped her be able to still stay on gymnastics team because the rule in my house was if you didn't have good grades, you didn't do any sports.
Yeah.
So it motivated her, and it was nice because it was built in, and it was nice also for the parents because it's been a long time since I've had algebra. Some of that stuff, I could back into it different ways, but I wasn't showing the work the way the teacher wanted. I mean, it was arguments every night.
Mm-hmm.
And I just know that, once she got into that tutoring piece, I mean, we got to that point, it was just so much better. So maybe that's something we could take a look at in terms of shaving off some time and creating a tutoring club. I don't know. Just a thought. I'm just telling you what.
I would love it.
That was available at Hill Middle School 10 years ago.
I did it as an AP in Southern California, and it was a 90-minute block, actually. And our DNF list was very short.
Yeah.
There you go.
Okay.
No excuses.
Trustee Aguilar?
Yeah, actually, this question was, I didn't know whether to ask it to all of you individually or all of you at once, and you
I can answer for all of them.
Okay. So it was basically, what is it that, and we started to talk about that right now, but that question was, what is it that you would need from the board, and this is to all of you principals, that you would need from the board in order to progress in the areas for improvement and lessons learned. So if some of you already addressed some of them, but what is it that, so you're telling us what's going on, you're reporting to us, but I feel like, at least I do, that just wanted to ask you what we can do to help your school in those areas.
I think my biggest thing would be to have kind of a comprehensive plan and system for data analysis as a district. And then, pie in the sky, I would love to have someone who is dedicated to data on my campus. Obviously, I need to be dedicated to data on my campus, but it would be great to have someone that's just the data nerd, whether it's like a 0.2 or 0.4. And I'm just throwing it out there, pie in the sky. But yeah, I think that would be amazing. One of the things we're doing, and I should have brought this up, is that we have our Leading for Equity team that we just comprise as 8 teachers. It's going to be going to an LFE, a Leading for Equity Institute, in January. And they're going to be kind of our Leading for Equity committee. And they're also going to be our data committee. They're going to do both. So they're going to be looking at data, because I think both are hand in hand, in my opinion. So we are going to be looking at that. But how we use data, having a resource to compile the data, I think that would be a huge help. And then, I think that's probably the biggest one. I mean, the other stuff we have to build systems within the site to make sure that we're holding people accountable and that we're being clear with what we want, with our expectations. So.
Trustee Mack.
Just to get back to what Trustee Scott was talking about, I recall when we were looking at later start time, we were considering block schedules, and that's exactly what that does.
Yeah.
There's one block schedule we had that had a full period, an intervention period, basically, and kids can go of their choice to go address things. So something we can address down the road. I can't remember exactly how we moved away from that, but I know we did. We are where we are, but maybe that's something we can take up.
I think we should.
Yeah. Trustee Nell.
I just was wondering if you could give us a little bit of an update on your WASC planning. I mean, it looks like tomorrow will be your 8th meeting, and you have 6 more site meetings to go before your visitation in early March. And just, wanted to know how that was going, and what do you think if the board could help with any of that? And I recall going through the process as a site leadership team member back in the day. So want to make sure that's going okay, because the last thing we want is anything less than an excellent outcome. So
yeah,
how's it going?
It's going really well. Jen Nichols is heading it up, and she's got a team of 6 teachers that are doing a phenomenal job. What's great about WASC is that a lot of things come up for areas of improvement. But I think a lot of things like common assessments get brought up where we can have real conversations about, the WASC team is coming. They're not from here. They're not part of this community, and they don't really care what we think. So they're going to ask these questions of us. So let's ask these questions of us right now so that we can be proactive. And so it's been a very good
I think it's been a very good process thus far. We would like to send that off next month. So we're going to be sending the report off in about 30 days. Yeah. So they're going to have time to respond, and they can respond by January and let us know things that we need to tweak for as far as the report is concerned. But the process has been really good. We've had students involved. It's been tougher to get the parents to come as part of the big group because it's at 2 o'clock. But I think Jen has a parent night next week that she's advertised, and she's going to continue to advertise. I think it's the 15th, yeah. So it's been going really well. There's not a lot right now from the board perspective that we need as far as support. It's more other than encouraging parents to go next week. But I'm not too concerned. I think there's a lot of great things happening, and I think we're very honest with the areas that we need to improve on, and we have a plan to improve on them. So.
All right. Thank you so much for your great report.
Thank you.
Look forward to seeing you next time.
Okay. Thank you.
Our last one.
And just in terms of the block scheduling, so we do have a task force, and it's going to be not 40 or 50 people. It's going to be maybe 12 people, maybe 10. Very small. We're going to have 3 meetings, and then we're going to come up with a recommendation for cabinet and then for NFT to take to a vote.
High school only or middle?
Middle school and high school both?
Just high school.
Can we look at middle school as well? Please.
High school, yes.
Okay, one step at a time.
Yes.
But we're interested in both.
Be happy to help if you need a board member.
Yeah.
on that.
Yeah, so
Yeah, we're happy
I'll
to
have
serve.
more information on our Friday updates.
Okay.
But not this Friday, because Jim gave us a Friday off. Thank you, Jim.
Veteran. Nice guy.
Okay, so up our.
Jeff, do you want to hold on one second? Jeff, did you have something to add?
I just had a quick statement about the tutorial. So I remember why now, why we kind of moved away from it. It's because when it was implemented at my school, it just didn't go very well. Yes. But after hearing all these ideas, I think that it could work. So we should touch on that next time, like whenever we have time. So yeah.
Good.
Thank
Good
you.
thought. Sorry, Yvonne.
Okay. All right, so next we have Mark Sims. So welcome to your first SIPSA in Novato, and principal of San Marin High School.
Thank you. Board President Cooper, Vice President Butler, trustees, Superintendent Hogaboom, and members of cabinet still in attendance this evening, and our student board members. Thank you for having me up here tonight representing San Marin High School. To share a little bit about our single plan for student achievement for this coming year. So there's hopefully a technical issue that I can solve here. If I don't, I apologize. And Yvonne, can you move the slides for me, please? Thank you. Okay, so I'll try to stick to script at this late hour. So here are some of our demographic numbers, our enrollments, English learners, so on and so forth. I do want to point out to you 2 things that I think are important to understand. 2 of our largest grade levels. They are our freshman level, which has 283 students, and our juniors at 277. Pointing out our freshmen because it's critical that they get the right start over their next 4 years at our high school. And secondly, that we have 277 juniors, and that is the CASP assessment, and I'll talk a little bit about some perceptions there. And we have a large number of students that will be assessed, and that will have an impact on our overall scores for this year. So next slide. This is the San Marin High School purpose, vision, and mission. It was developed for the probationary visit, is my understanding. That was 2 years ago. It will be adjusted for our WASC visit of 2020, which is our full visit, and we will be utilizing some information that I will share to you in the next couple of slides. It will involve our WASC focus group, which will include our staff, our students, parents in the community, and our home groups, our department, to hammer out a more relevant purpose, vision mission relating to these, of course, next few slides that are coming up. So this is a few slides on successful schools research. It's a synthesis of information studies, and those 6 bullets are what successful schools demonstrate. The first 4 bullets really focusing on teaching and learning, and the last 2 on really social and emotional areas that involve staff and students. So as we create our new purpose, vision, and mission, those are areas that we need to consider. Our next slide is the visiting committee report from the 2017 mid-cycle visit, which was last year. And those are 5 bullets that we need to keep in the back of our mind, actually really the front of our minds, as we work to the 2020 visit. And I think that the narrative that I'll share over the next few slides addresses part or whole of these recommendations as we begin that 3-year cycle. So some of the great things that we have. One is that 97% of our teachers have been trained, which is in PBL, which is a district initiative. It's also a method where students may demonstrate mastery of content in multiple ways. We have instituted a what, how, and a why school-wide, where we have students articulating, they're called docents, articulating what's expected in class, what the content is, rather, how it will be learned, and why it is important or why it will be learned. And that's a continued focus that we will use over the next few years. We have some peer tutors in some selected algebra classes. We do not have a system in place prior to my arrival that allows tutors in every class, although I could speak more to that if you'd like to hear more about it later tonight after I'm done. But the qualitative feedback in those Algebra 1 classes from students is they get immediate assistance in class, and they also get a different way of hearing the teacher's voice, which is critical. A student who is a tutor said, "Hey, this is pretty cool." So that was the one of the tutors' comments. Our counselors working with Marin Promise, focusing on DNF students early, freshman students, to ensure A through G completion with a C or better. And these are generally focusing on students who are not involved in another community-based organization like 10,000 Degrees. And lastly, we've had an expansion and increase of restorative practices, which we have started. Mr. Casper had his first meeting with a site-based group today, involving staff and parents to develop positive expectations for the entire San Marin community. Our next slide. Some lesson learned. Well, we've had a school-wide recognition and belief that we must be better. We are underachieving and it's unacceptable. And I've been impressed with our culture so far of our staff that we can and will do better. The staff has expressed a desire that we need to focus on these standards, that everyone has a part in increasing our student achievement to be college and career ready. And when I say everybody, that is from our campus safety to our classified support personnel to our teachers and coaches. We have learned that a belief in our attitudes towards assessment is critical, and changing the school to San Marin community's view of assessment is critical, and addressing these cultural expectations towards what we're assessing, how we're going about our assessments, and why we assess what we assess. And that's not only from a site-based perspective, but from CASP, AP, SAT, and so forth. And then aligning our work to the standards. Every classroom has to understand that what is learned and how it is learned is really a critical piece. And our geometry group is starting that Monday. They are meeting off campus to address the second semester to ensure that we have some consistency there. So some key areas here. Well, we need to ensure that our students are assigned to the most appropriate course placements so they're successful. And that is the work that our counselors are doing, that our teachers are doing, and our administrators need to do as well. We need to ensure that our standards determine that the content is taught is consistent school-wide. So if you are in world history, that the expectation in that class is the same. And that means that we need to have conversations within our content areas that this is what the standard means, this is what mastery means, and what it looks like. If that consistency isn't there, then of course our grades wouldn't align with that either. We have to have an eye on our student enrollments as well, particularly our student groups, that they're enrolled in the correct courses to be successful, that we're looking at grades and students' supports so they can be successful. Our meeting times. Our meeting times need to focus on the items that I mentioned earlier, the assessments that we have, the teaching that is taking place, and the learning based on the data that we have. And that this is finally, this is a journey, and it's hard work. And I believe our staff has started to make that commitment to demonstrating high achievement. And it's going to take some time. And we believe that the plan that we have over the next 3 years will help us get there with the kind of commitment that our students and our teachers, because both of those are important, have been demonstrating thus far in my short time at San Marin.
Great. Good stuff. Trustees, Trustee Miller, you go first.
Thank you very much for coming this evening and providing the presentation. Clearly, the most valuable audience you've got are your peers sitting out here in the uncomfortable chairs. So this is great. Once again, we hear a comment about the DNF list, and I encourage you to talk to your peers about teaching to mastery and the exercises that it takes to do that as a process. Clearly not, you can't snap your fingers and make it happen. As you've heard tonight, it's a difficult journey, and I encourage you to start that. And I also encourage you, my daughter graduated San Marin High School in 2000 and teaches mathematics at Terraland High School. And I encourage you to rely on the San Marin community. There's a very strong community resource, and reach out and engage them, and that community will stand up and support your school effectively. If you start the conversation, they will respond.
Thank you.
Trustee Butler.
Thank you, and thanks for putting a spin on the plan that speaks to you as being the new principal there. It's not something, when I looked at last year's, it's completely different, so I appreciate that, and writing a whole new plan. You mentioned utilize academic Saturday school in several of your areas. And from what I'm reading, it looks like you're using it as more of a credit recovery or something on that aspects. When I think of Saturday or academy, I think of it's more for kids who have been absent quite a bit. So I'm curious on how you're going to get the kids there if you're not getting them from being excessive tardy or excessively absent.
Right. Well, that's one of the first things we want to do to run a successful Saturday school is look at those students who have the unexcused absence somewhere within the course of their attendance and enrollment. Second thing we want to look at is what students have that gap in their learning. So who hasn't mastered standards? And then develop a relationship with those students and have personal phone calls from site administration, from counselors, to urge the parents to see why this is so critical. And you know something, ma'am, sir, you're really doing us a service. We might use the term doing us a solid. I don't know how appropriate that is in this kind of setting. But develop that relationship to say, this is so important to us and so important to your son or to your daughter, because that personal connection with the parents is very important. And then it's our part in developing a personal relationship with our teaching staff. So not every teacher has to be there for a student who may need supports or intervention. But if Yvonne and I are teaching in English, we may represent the entire English department. Right. So in our Wednesday meeting, the teachers meet and they develop what is it that we're going to do to support freshmen, sophomore, juniors, and seniors. I may represent the freshman, sophomore group. He may represent the junior, senior group. And then students know when they come, that's what they're working on, whether it's through a Google Classroom, whether it's an old school technology hard copy, and then they work and develop that kind of plan. At a school where I was prior, we had approximately 800 students attending Saturday school out of our enrollment of about 1,500. That's the plan. A lot of it was the outreach with our students, making sure that our community liaison was involved, and then it slowly begins, students start bringing teachers. We had this conversation in our cabinet the other day that they always travel in threes. They're never going to go alone. And then it slowly builds steam. It took that particular assistant principal who really took it upon his shoulders about 3 years to develop that process. And of course, the AP tutorials were often were used. We may not recover the ADA, but it was valuable time as well. So that's the thought process we're going about. It's going to take some time. It'll probably take more than this year to make it happen, but it's the start and it's the thought process that we will be thinking about developing Saturday school over time.
Okay, thank you.
Jeffrey, anything to add? A lot of good stuff there.
All right. So Saturday school, as I've seen it is just a good part for the people who have been tardy or whatever. They haven't been there. But there's also a good chunk of people who use it for catching up or even excelling in certain classes, like my auto shop class, where maybe 15 people don't want to show up or something, but the 10 people that do can go in, work on a car, figure out how to take apart their engine and whatnot. And it really it makes an environment where you have that extra day to kind of get that little extra thing out of the class, or that little extra push out of whatever you need. And for any student that really shows up, really gets something out of it. I had one English teacher last year who had a whole seminar about why we think in certain ways, and it was something that he would never teach in class, and it was something that I found incredibly valuable, and it's something that really changed my ideology from last year and is really changing my ideology now, and it's just something that we learned in 2 hours, and it's just a new way of thinking, and things that you can have implemented in those, like, what is it, like 2 hours, right? 4 hours that really could be either life-changing or just a push so you could start succeeding. All right, thank you.
Excellent comments. And Trustee Mack.
I just want to say thank you for this. It's it's refreshing to see focus on the fundamental foundation at the school. I know we've put a lot of time into STEM and all those sort of things, but it seemed at times it was almost a distraction because they're trying to push that forward and not able to really get into the fundamental pieces that support everything. And that's why I'm really glad you're focusing on that. I know there's a lot of flash with STEM and the biochem and all the other stuff, but I really appreciate this. And at some point we'll get into the STEM stuff and my penchant for wanting to pull kids in from other districts. But let's do this first. This is good. Thank you.
Trustee Aguilar?
Yeah. So I wanted to thank you for everything that you've been doing and learning and teaching and just being there with the students. I wanted to welcome you to your first meeting, and also my question to you again and to the rest of the principals is what can the board do to help with the areas that your school needs?
It's quite a loaded question for 10 to 10.
Pick your top three.
Well, I think I'd be a little remiss in not trying to have a long sit-down conversation with staff. But I think one of the things, so I'll just stick to one thing because I do have many that are on my mind. We do struggle with the right platform to place assessments where we can get data back immediately. That where we can see our groups and how they're doing, and we can disaggregate the data from the teacher level. I've worked with systems in other districts, and we found that although it took some massaging with folks, they found it really was helpful in terms of finding out who was achieving, who was not, and why.
All right. The only comment I have is also two comments to welcome you, and I'm really impressed with what I hear tonight. And I'm really looking through your plan. The two things that struck me were you cite two examples of where you really engage the students and you get them to buy into what we're doing. Taking a test, you have to understand the importance of taking that test and the reason you're here taking that. And you cited that, and we've talked collectively as a board about that before. So that's good. And also I like your creating student expectations group. Both kind of related, but both, I think they're awesome.
Thank you. That part is also about our adult expectations on campus. And we want to frame those positively as well. So thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Trustees? Nope. Sorry to keep you so late.
No,
I know
worries.
it's
Thank you very
getting
much.
late, and thank you.
Okay, so just a couple of next steps. The Saturday Academy that we're Saturday school. We're using Saturday Academy. It's more positive. It has a new twist. So last year we started in February, as you know. You all approved that, and we had over 3,000 students attend. Saturday Academy is district-wide. The high schools pretty much have Saturday Academy every Saturday.
Thank you, student
So at this
trustees.
point, Before I ask for approval, one thing that we want to mention is that at the end of November, we do have about 20 teachers attending what we call the Sound Grading Practices Conference. That's going to be focused on grading and assessments. So we think that this is going to be a game changer. It has been for the ones that have attended in the past. And we're looking forward to having these 20 teachers attend the sound grading practices for our high schools. So at this time, the superintendent and staff are recommending approvals of the site plans.
Very good. So we got a first, Trustee Butler, a second, Trustee Miller, all in favor? That passes 7-0. Great job. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
All right, we're on to our next discussion action item, interdistrict open enrollment policy 5116.1 and the accompanying ARs. This is the second reading, and if we can get through it and be our final reading, that would be fine as well, I think. So, Chris.
All right, so thank you for having me. Again, this is a second reading, so I'm going to focus on the questions that you brought up in the first reading, and I think some changes that we've made in response to your thoughtful questions. The key questions that you brought up: have we met with the GATE parents at Novato? At the GATE parents in the district, and have we met with Novato's Spanish-speaking community to talk with them about dual immersion? I could say that we now have, I'm going to give you a little bit of information about each of those meetings. We still have some work to do. Second question was, why will students new to the dual immersion program at Linwood in 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade need to demonstrate proficiency in Spanish in order to enroll in the program? So that was based on how the language was written the last time you saw it. And then the third question was, will giving siblings priority enrollment into Linwood have a negative effect on the program moving forward? And so we're going to address those questions as we move through the presentation. We'll start with community outreach. We've had a couple weeks. We've tried to use those couple weeks as well as we could. So as Trustee Mack mentioned, Yvonne was able to go and talk with the GATE leadership team to discuss possible effects of dual immersion on the self-contained GATE classes at Linwood. Really what has been translated back to me was the interest is having an ongoing self-contained GATE program at an elementary school. And if it's at Linwood, that could be okay. If it's somewhere else, that could be okay. We've got some time to work on that solution. There doesn't seem to be a lot of stress or anxiety over that decision at this point. We also met with the District English Language Advisory Council, the DLAC, to review a draft of this policy. We wanted to make sure they understood first the dual immersion program in general, and then second, what this policy meant for the different constituent groups: students enrolled in Linwood, students who moved into the Linwood area, and students who had an interest in transferring into Linwood. And after hearing the presentation, they supported the policy as we communicated it with them. Very briefly, students in the Linwood area, no changes here. If you're living in the Linwood area, you enroll in the program unless you want to opt out. If you opt out, there's a form. You prioritize all the schools in the district. You do one form for siblings, and we will do everything we can to get you to as high a priority as we can and to keep siblings together, all dependent upon space available at those other programs. Gets a little more complicated when we have students moving into the boundary, into Linwood after the school year begins. So, but you're going to notice there's a change here. So TK, K, and 1, you move into the boundary, you're interested in staying in the program, no problem. After doing some research, and the next slide we'll share a little bit about how we found best practices. We made an adjustment to what we would recommend for 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grades students. So all students who move in mid-year are going to be assessed. And we're going to assess for two different things. We're going to assess for bilingualism and biliteracy. So bilingualism is the verbal skills in order to be able to communicate in both English and Spanish. and the biliteracy is the reading, writing portion. And what we're not going to expect is that they're going to come in and be fluent. We're going to expect them to be at the same place as they would need to be, as the other kids are in that program. So if you're coming in second grade, we have benchmarks for where second graders are supposed to be. If we feel like you're there, you can come in and be successful. That's great. But if we don't feel like you're going to be able to do that, we're going to try to get you to a place where you can be successful. So how did we get to that landing point that was different than what we shared with you last time? We reached out to 6 different school principals in 4 different districts. Only one of them had a last name of Chaidez. But we leaned heavily on Yvonne's network here. So a couple schools in Napa. You could see the other districts, Woodland, Salinas, and Mount Diablo. And they all shared that once students get past the first grade, it's really hard for them to come into the program and be successful if they aren't bilingual and biliterate. So it's really important to do that assessment then so that we can get them on a track to be successful. And really there were only 2 rationales for that. One is to maximize student success, put kids in an opportunity to be successful, and the other one was to maintain a strong academic program. So that's how we got there. We also went to the CDE for some guidance. A little bit different than where we landed, but very similar. This talks about some of the things when you're building a dual immersion program. You want to have about a 50-50 balance of native English speakers to native Spanish speakers, if at all possible. You want to keep that ratio. You don't want it to go below 33%. So ideal is 50, but if it gets to 33 or somewhere in between 50 and 33, you can be okay. They recommend that two-way programs do not accept English-only speakers after second grade. That's a big picture. When you talk to the practitioners on the ground, they're saying after first grade it gets really problematic based on their experience. And like what we're talking about, CDE says if you're bilingual and biliterate, you can enter the program at any time as long as space is available. This is the intra-district part of this policy. What happens if you want to transfer into the dual immersion program? You're going to see this is the same language that we had on the other page. If you're TK, K, and 1, no problem. And you go through the intra-district transfer process. I can't say no problem, but you go through the typical process with a typical priority structure that we have in place. 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. In order to be able to enroll in the program, students are going to need to be chosen in the lottery, and then they're going to have to demonstrate that they have that they're bilingual and biliterate if it's 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. And then all the policies and timelines for the district, intra-district transfer would apply. Siblings. This is something that we looked a lot into. And essentially where we landed is that this isn't going to be a problem. We don't anticipate that it's going to be a problem because of the demographics that are currently in place at Linwood School. I think when you're starting from ground up and you don't have any boundaries, it can become a very large problem very quickly with all the spaces being filled up by siblings, et cetera. Since we already have a large population of students that meet our demographics at Linwood, we don't think that'll be a problem. So what we would suggest is that we go through the typical NUSD intra-district transfer process. Part of this comes down to dual immersion really being a lifestyle that families are signing up for. And this is going to give families confidence that the younger children are going to be able to be included in this lifestyle. I mean, when you're opting into an immersion-based program, that's a family decision and a family commitment. And it's a whether you start in TK or K, that's a 6 or 7 year commitment for each child. So we think that'll serve us well. And if it doesn't serve us well, then we can always revisit the policy. But based on talking to other districts and looking at the demographics for Linwood, we think we'll be okay there. Students outside of Novato, we're going to bring back inter-district transfer policy once we get this approved, because the language is going to be very similar, so it doesn't make sense to talk about that at this time, but the rules will be very similar. to what we land on for the intra policy. That was a lot in a hurry.
That was very good, very
Questions?
informative. Thank you. Trustee Miller.
I appreciate you addressing the questions that were raised. Thank you very much. I have some apprehension about the sibling process, particularly historically when older siblings were brought in, when a kindergartner got in, it was then the basis for bringing all their older siblings in. I'm fine with proceeding on this basis and seeing how this works out, but just know that this has created a polarizing effect that was historically hard to unravel.
Yep.
So
I appreciate that. We'll keep an eye on it.
Yeah, I'm start somewhere and go from there.
All right, anyone else? Trustee Butler?
Just a clarification, I think I understood the first time we had the reading, you were concerned about a first grader coming in the second semester, coming in and going into dual. Sounds like you're okay with that
Yes.
now based on getting a little more information?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Trustee Scott?
I'm just curious, as far as the dual immersion, are we thinking forward 5 years from now with these kids? Are we going to be doing anything for middle school and or high school? I would hate for these kids to have all this immersion and then boom, they go to middle school and high school and they have 6 years of nothing or very little.
Yes, this needs to be built into a.
So we are thinking
TK
about that. That is
12
on the
program.
horizon
Yes.
somewhere.
Yes, and
Okay.
it won't. This doesn't mean we have to convert a middle school to a dual immersion school. It means that we have to have course offerings in the middle school and in the high school.
I just want to
And-
make sure that
yeah.
that's on the horizon, that we are thinking of that. Okay.
And a lot of times what it looks like is courses like social studies for native Spanish speakers, science for native Spanish speakers, and things like that. So, yeah.
Okay. And then last question is, can you talk about the lottery, where that's going to be held and what that looks like? What you're envisioning?
So the lottery would be similar to what we already do for the intra-district lottery. And to be honest, I don't know exactly what we do or when it's held, but it's the similar process to what we already have in place for the intras. We do it here.
Yeah, we do it here. Yep, in front of everybody's eyes.
I just want to make sure that that's on the record for those listening at home.
Good. Thank
you.
All right, Trustee Aguila?
Yes, we are focusing on Spanish, and so I've said it in the past. If and we should start with Spanish, of course, but I'm interested in the other languages for the future. That would be wonderful. And so, are we thinking about that also in 5 years, in 6, 7 years, so our forms can be. So everything can be easier now and not have to reinvent the wheel, and when it comes time and we're ready to bring in other languages.
Yes, I believe that one of the things I've heard from trustees time and time again is how do we continue to be a marketable school district, both to the Novato community but also to the community beyond Novato in Marin County. And I think having dual immersion in other languages, particularly Mandarin, is one that we saw and we were just blown away by. Given China's place in the global economy, that could be a great asset that we could share with our students. So yes, I think we don't know what that's going to look like. We're going to start slow. We're going to build it. We're going to do it right. And then from there, I think sky's the limit.
All right, any other comments? It's getting late. Trustee now.
I want to visit the siblings question for families that are outside the Linwood district. It's not the older kids. It's the next younger kid. I don't have our transfer policy memorized, but it would seem if I got my eldest into the kindergarten class at the dual immersion program, and then the following year I wanted to get my second into that school, it's a lottery. I mean, it's basically I follow the procedure, or there's a chance that they won't get in.
It's follow the procedure, but the lottery allows for priority, and that's one of the priorities.
It's the sibling
Doesn't
priority.
guarantee access.
Does not guarantee.
Okay, so
You got a priority over other kids.
all right. Well, we'll see how that goes.
Trustee Mack?
Yeah, I've seen this form a bunch of times, so I'm good with it. Was just, like I said earlier, I'd like to make sure we cover that potential situation where Linwood shows up with, Linwood territory shows up with 3 classes worth of kindergartners.
Yeah.
What do we do?
Yeah,
That's all.
I do appreciate you bringing that up. And to be honest, that's something that came up in the dual immersion meeting. That's not something I had thought about. So it's good to have it on the radar.
All right, trustees, this is an action item, so I would entertain a motion on this. Anybody? Trustee Butler, second, Trustee Mack, all in favor? Thanks. And the second and finals, thank you. And all in favor, 7-0. Thank you very much. All right, we're on to our last item. And the reason I brought this up, I'm going to kind of tee this up a little bit. Well, second, yeah, we got the consent item. I wanted to tee this up. So, as you know, our next meeting in December 5th is when it's our organizational meeting, and we'll vice president and the president moves out. Vice president typically moves up to the presidential role, and then the trustees, all of us, decide who would make a good vice presidential candidate. And in the attachment here, there's some information that I included, the role of the board president and vice president. I think many of you know, but there's, certainly when you step into the role of the clerk or vice president, if it does follow historical process, you'll then become more than likely the president. And if that happens, then you've got a certain amount of time that's committed to this position, and you have to be available. You're communicating a lot more with the public, with the press, and so there's several things in here that's why I wanted to include. Develop the board team, represents the board in the district, works very closely with the superintendent. Every week we have agenda planning. So just all of those things need to be kept in mind as we move forward. And I think it's important that we have in the interest of transparency, that we have this discussion before that December 5th meeting. So I would, kind of just open it up to the trustees and see if anyone's interested in either vice president or president for next year. Trustee Miller.
I've just started a new job, and I would not be available to serve in those roles.
Okay.
I got to focus on my work assignments.
Okay.
I'm happy to serve in other roles.
Thank you.
I think it's obvious I travel a lot, so I really, for the same reason, I think I should not be considered for that role, at least at this time.
Yeah, this time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. Anybody else? Interest?
Well,
we hope you're interested.
I hope that you're okay if I was to continue on as board president. It would be my third try at this, and hopefully third time's a charm. So I have the commitment. I'm committed to do it, and I have the time to do it. So, and it does take, if you get into this position, you're in for 2 years, and anticipate that, and anticipate meeting every week for the most part, and any unexpected meetings that might pop up. So I would like to continue on as board president.
Okay, great.
I support Trustee Butler for president.
Oh, okay. How about anybody interested in following with her and being stepping up to a leadership role?
Well, let me put it this way. I'm interested in serving. I intend to continue to serve for beyond my current term, so I'm available, but I do think that it's an opportunity for I'd like to hear from others. I have served as president twice myself, so I'm willing to, I just think that I'm available, but there might be others who would be available as well that could do the job, and I'd like to hear from everyone.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's important. Thank you. Trustee Scott, I think you're the last man standing.
Come on, don't you have any time?
Do you have interest?
My only,
or-
I'm interested, yes. I'm handling my mother's probate, or not my mother's probate, but her estate. So that is going to be time consuming. I don't want to say yes and then not have the time, because I'm very well aware of being in that position in the past. When I was board president, when I was clerk, there were many, many, many meetings we had to go to. When other people couldn't fill in, we did. So I'm aware of the time commitment. I want to make sure before I throw my hat into the ring that I have that time commitment. So I just have to circle back around with, the
Yeah.
attorneys and the CPA to find out what's
We've got-
really in front of me
we've
to
got time.
close this
The
out.
only,
Yeah, we have
we'll
a few more
decide that on
weeks.
the 5th, but I just thought it was a good idea to have that discussion
No, I
out
appreciate
in
it.
public and talk about it, and then we'll do some more discussion and figure it out on the 5th. Okay? Any other comments on that issue? No? Trustee Aguilera, did you have any interest in?
Oh, I would be happy to volunteer as vice president. That would be for 1 year. I'm not sure about the second year, just because, well, there's elections, and then I also have personal stuff.
Okay.
So, but for vice president,
Okay.
I'm available.
Well, let's have that, let's push it forward to the 5th of December and go from there. Thank you, guys. That's great. And now let's do, Trustee Aguila, you pulled, was it item E on the consent?
Item
Do you want
E.
to talk about that a little bit? Tell us what you're looking to do.
Well, there's not much to say. I just wanted to thank Trustee Butler for kind of helping me out here. The reason I pulled the whole item out, thinking, I agree with 4 out of the 5 board policies and administrative regulations on item E, but so this is why I thought I could approve all of E and then request to bring AR 3514.2, which is the integrated pest management as a future agenda item. But thank you, Trustee Butler. It is better to just pull that one that I didn't agree with. And it's not that I don't agree with. I just think that as a board member, I'd like more information. If you can bring that back with more information, we need to renew it. It is on our website, which is good. It is old though, and I have more questions just about it, and that's basically it.
Can I get a clarification? Are you interested in what we do with regards to pest management? So maybe
What are
not
we-
necessarily the policy, but our practice on how we.
Our practice, and what are we using, how we're using it, why are we using it, that kind of stuff. So just more information, that's all that I
Maybe
think
get
that the
with staff
board,
on that.
we would want to learn more about it.
Do you think that would be something to get with staff and talk about?
Sure.
And then, I'd be happy Maria, if you want to pull, I could foresee pulling this one, 3514.2, leave the rest, pull that and pull it back for a future meeting.
Exactly.
I could foresee, if that's what you want to do.
That's what I
don't
wanted to
know
do.
what you want to
Right.
do, but, and that would allow you the time to, in the meantime, talk to staff, and then we could have that discussion as a board. All right, so let's listen to Trustee Nell.
So I support that concept. I think what we have here is a situation where it appears we're all in agreement on all of 14E with the exception of the numeral that Trustee Aguila pointed out. My question for staff is how, are they blockchained together so that can we actually approve all the others without having too much trouble coming back with a second reading on the ARs on this one in question?
Yeah, this particular item is not contingent upon the other items within. It's related but not specifically conjoined. So
I would support
14.2, right?
I would support, a motion to pass all but
Yes, so
the AR in question, and then have that AR brought back, and due to the lateness of the hour, Trustee Aguila can get with staff more information.
Okay, so Maria, why don't you, if you want to do that, it's 3514.2 and it's an AR.
Correct. And so he made
And
the
then
motion.
go ahead and try and make a motion.
Okay, I make a motion. Oh. Derek
You
made the
made-
motion.
So I've made that motion.
And I second.
Whatever. That's fine. Okay. Okay, good. Okay, we have a first and a second. All in favor? Okay. All in favor of that is 7-0. Thank you. And with that, our next board meeting is a special board meeting on the 14th. Yes, and what's the start time of that?
6, special board meeting. 6 is
6 p.m. on the 11/14. Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.